right, I'm going live. Yep, says I'm live now. Could you maybe turn on the heat just a smidge? That'd be all right. Thank you. All right, hi, I'm back. Sorry about that. We're back. Let's talk. What are we talking about? All right, hopefully this is working this time. It says my mic's working about the same. Hello, hello. Weird. I don't know. Well, I might have to look into that later. Here's another thing. If I monetize and I can save up enough money, I might be able to get a better recording kit. That would be lovely. But my phone works good for now. My webcam and my microphone are pretty old. Yeah, they're about 5-6 years old, something like that.
I think you're good.
Okay, good. Thank you. What should we talk about? Give me a topic. Something about the brain. Oh, I did a video recently. I don't know. I literally just released it. So a lot of you might not have gotten a chance to see it yet. But apparently the FDA has approved a device that allows you to stimulate your brain at home, which is kind of crazy. It's wild, you know. So for people with depression, a lot of times we try to treat depression in a number of different ways. We might recommend a certain diet or regimen, some sort of routine helps a lot of the time. And when depression gets like pretty severe, we offer medication to try to get through that, usually like SSRIs or SNRIs, things like that. But there are people who are very like resistant to medication, right? There are people who medication doesn't work no matter what you do. So it's like, how do we help these people? And a lot of people go untreated, which sucks. That's awful. But depending on the severity of the depression, like a lot of people start slipping into like suicidality and things like that, that ideation. And it's like, how do we keep people from getting to that point? I see my internet might be a little unstable. Sorry if that's the case. But something that we found to be a pretty like profound treatment, it works in a large number of individuals, is electric shock therapy, which obviously, back in the day when it was originally done was pretty inhumane, but there's a reason it's still around today. I think at one point it was considered pretty unethical, but these days people still do it because it does work. For some reason, shocking the brain can improve your mood. I think there's something to be said about the fact that neurons communicate electrically. And when you shock the brain, you are forcing a lot of neurotransmitter out into the synapses, right? That being said, you definitely don't need to apply that much voltage or even just that big of a current, right? It's actually very soft, the current that you need to apply. We now know that with lots of testing. So the very first device has been approved by the FDA for you to... Hello, Amy. How are you? The very first device has been approved for you to wear this headset with a prescription at home on your couch, and you can stimulate the dorsal medial part of your brain. Let me put my mic down just for a sec. I'm going to put my brain back together. Yeah. Okay, I have my brain. Here it is. It's beautiful. Your dorsal medial part of your brain is the prefrontal cortex is what I'm referring to. Is dorsal means up and medial means in. And we're looking at the dorsal medial prefrontal cortex, which means we're right here, right in the front. Yeah. Anyway, that's where that stimulation is applied. And apparently it improves people's mood. It doesn't do it like super right away, but it doesn't take long. I mean, if you look at the amount of time that it usually takes medications to work, it's about on par with that, or maybe even a little better. I know that a lot of people try medications the first time. It takes like 3 or 4 weeks for them to start to feel anything. And maybe they won't feel anything. And then you have to put them on a different medication to see if that one will work, because the mechanisms are always different and everybody's brain is different. So what's causing the depression is always different, right? So you do the best that you can. And the other thing about medication, it's oftentimes compared to like changing the oil of your car. But you leave the oil cap off your engine and you just dump oil all over the engine and hope that some of that oil gets to where it needs to go. But the oil that's not going where it needs to go and is going where it shouldn't be is probably causing problems. We call those problems side effects, right? Um, so that being the case, medication's not always the best, but we do the best that we can. And sometimes it can take months. Sometimes it can take months and months for people to get any sort of relief from their symptoms. Um, and some people never get relief, right? Like I said, some people are very resistant to medication. It just doesn't work for them. So the fact that we have this transcranial stimulation device is pretty amazing. We can because you're shocking just the area, and it's such a low applied current that it's considered non-invasive. Um, and you can barely feel it, if at all. But it seems to show good improvements compared to sham or placebo, whatever you want to call it. Um, yeah, and it works within. Some people are getting relief as soon as like 3 weeks. Um, but I think most people it takes a little bit more. Roughly 70% of people were getting a lot of relief pretty quickly. That being said, not everybody responded to it, but it's pretty amazing. Like it's a great tool to have in your arsenal. And the fact that you can just do it at home, it's COVID safe, right? You don't have to go into the hospital every week, which is, people who undergo this kind of treatment clinically, they have to go in like once a week. That sucks. Like, what if you live really far from the hospital? What if you're immune compromised, which is often the case for a lot of people? You don't really want to go to a hospital where people are sick. That's dangerous and it's stressful. And on top of being depressed, you don't need to be stressed out, also, although most people, I think, kind of are. Um, yeah. So I don't know. I'm really excited for this new development. This is like a historic thing. I think like people may not, it might be underestimating how big of an impact this is for you to be able to neuromodulate yourself from your couch. You're listening to me like a podcast while you do some filming work on your phone. Might take longer to answer. That's fine. Can you explain Libet's experiments? I hope I spelled that right. I actually don't know those experiments, but I'm happy to look into them. I might know them. Can you tell me like a brief statement about what they're about? And it might jog my memory. Maybe I can do a little quick Google search. We do actions before we're conscious of the actions. Oh, yeah, sure. Okay. Yeah, I'm just reading that now. It says it might be Libet or it might be Libet. It's probably Libet. 1980s used EEG to show that unconscious brain activity or readiness potential begins hundreds of milliseconds before a person becomes consciously aware of their decision to make a simple voluntary movement. That makes sense. I'm not sure what you want me to talk about here, but I have a few things. One is that like if you look into reflexes, reflex circuits are the simplest circuits we have. The really common example that we always talk about, and one day when I am able and have the resources to be able to do long form videos on YouTube, I will be doing one of the first videos I'll do is to talk about the circuitry in more depth because I want to teach people neuroscience, right? And this is a huge thing. So, one of the simplest circuits goes from your spinal cord out to your muscle. That's your motor circuit. That's an efferent. And then there's another neuron, single neuron, that comes from your periphery into your spinal cord. And then they communicate with each other via interneuron inside your spinal cord. And their purpose is to get you to move quickly. So if you were to touch something, say, hot or sharp enough to damage you, you would recoil, right? And the really common example that we use to show this is like the patellar movement, the patellar reflex. That's the one where they hit your knee with a hammer, right? And you can see that your knee kicks before you're even aware that it's kicking, right? You're aware that it's kicking maybe a third of a second or later after the event. So that's generally how reflexes work. You move very quickly. And the reason why is because if you look at the circuitry, the time it takes for the stimulus to go from your skin to your spinal cord and then back out to your muscle is very quick. And it happens faster than it takes for that signal to get to your brain and for you to make sense of what just happened. And of course, like how we perceive that naturally is like it's happening roughly around the same time, but you'll notice one happens before the other. Thanks for the SpongeBobs. I appreciate it. Thanks so much for the gifts. Teo Cartal. I'm ready. So man, I love SpongeBob. I'm gonna watch that movie for sure. I grew up on SpongeBob. Such a dumb show, but I love it. Anyway, yeah. So I mean, it makes sense that in the brain, when you're making decisions, you might be making decisions before you're consciously ready to understand that you're making a decision. Plenty of things. Only positivity. Thanks. Yeah, right back at you. Yeah. So it makes sense that there is some kind of process, right? That must be like gearing you up or getting you ready for your own decision making, right? Some sort of spark in there. Anyway, it looks like Libet was doing experiments with that. Benjamin Libet. He called it readiness potential. He said it begins hundreds of milliseconds before a person becomes conscious. So hundreds of milliseconds. Let's talk about that time frame, okay? Hundreds of milliseconds is not uncommon in the realm of neuroanatomy. The faster impulses, I think, or actually the slower impulses, I think are around 300 milliseconds, right? Or around like 200 milliseconds is like a fifth of a second. So that's pretty fast. And that's the slow ones. So when he's talking about on orders of hundreds of milliseconds, I guess one of like the big deals around this is that feels pretty slow, right? Something is making that decision deep within you before you're aware that you're making that decision. And it's aware at least almost, a little less than a second, but that's still a long time to, I guess if you, I don't know. It's arbitrary. It's relative. It's not arbitrary. It is relative though. Says, here's a task that they did. Participants watched a clock and decided to flick their wrist whenever they felt like it, noting the clock time when they first felt the urge to move. EEG measured brain activity, readiness potential, and EMG measured the muscle movement. Okay, so you got to be really careful with this stuff because also you need to take care that your that the equipment that you're using is set up to record things with the same sensitivity, right? With the same what's the word I want to use for that? There's a perfect word I want to use for this. Resolution. Yeah, that's the word for it. You want to make sure that if you're using a piece of equipment to look at one thing and you're using another piece of equipment to look at another thing, which they did, they used one piece of equipment to look at the brain waves outside of the skull, that's EEG, and they used EMG to measure the muscle movement, which means that they probably put some kind of sucker on the person's wrist, and when they move the wrist, it takes in an electrical reading from there. So you want to make sure that they have the same resolution, right? That they'll happen, or at least that you can sync them up, because otherwise you might be getting readings that are not exactly accurate. But I assume that he probably knew that. Says the readiness potential, his findings, started about 550 milliseconds before the movement, but subjects reported their conscious awareness only about 200 milliseconds before the move. So remember, 200 milliseconds. This is interesting, actually. Think about this. 200 milliseconds is a fifth of a second. And what did I say? I said that 200 milliseconds is like a longer impulse. And we know that it takes about that long for a thought to happen. So it's funny that they reported 200 milliseconds. That makes sense because that's about how long it takes the thought to happen. But it says it actually started 550 milliseconds, which means that if it's 200 milliseconds to send one impulse, that means that before that one impulse was sent, another impulse and a partial impulse were sent. So something else had to have sparked that and generated it, got the thought going, it being the thought of movement, right? That's interesting. So apparently this person uses the research to challenge free will. It is wild, Annie. It's pretty nuts. That the brain decides before we're consciously aware. It's actually not out of the realm of, like, it is nuts. It's cool. It's really cool, but it's not out of the realm of like reality, right? Like we know this already kind of with other experiments. I'll give you an example. This one doesn't even have to do with, it's not even related to time, right? I forget who did this experiment. I'll have to look them up and do a video about it. Thank you also, Amy, for the suggestion. I'll do a video on this. I'll do a little more work, research it a bit better, and do a video on it. Yeah, let me write this down. Oh, okay, I did. There was another experiment where college-aged students, college-aged men, importantly, they were heterosexual men who identified as men, right? So these are straight men, participated in an experiment where they looked at pictures of women that presumably they'd be attracted to, women that also were college-aged from other colleges, right? And so the experimenters took a bunch of pictures of these women, and the pictures were like this. One was straight on, right? One's straight on. And then the other one is at 3/4 profile, right? 3/4 profile. Sorry, I have two cameras going, and one of them's, when one's straight on, the other's 3/4 and vice versa. But anyway, so they would do that, the straight on and the 3/4 profile pics. And then also, so they ended up with 4 photos because it would be straight on, normalize, 3/4 normalize, and then they would do eye drops that would cause your pupils to just dilate ever so slightly. And they did the same photos, one straight on and then one 3/4, right? And with zero exception, men preferred the women who had the dilated pupils. And you could ask why you think the woman with the dilated pupils is more attractive, right? And their answers were always like, oh, she's really pretty. She's got a nice smile. She looks really smart. She looks funny. I could just see myself spending time with her. I really like her hair, yada, yada, yada. But what nobody ever said was, oh, I really like how this person's eyes are dilated 1 millimeter more than this other person's, right? Or a 0.5 millimeter or whatever. It was very, very slight. So it's like, yeah, these men weren't really perceiving it, or they were perceiving it, right, subconsciously, but they weren't consciously perceiving it. They weren't aware that they were perceiving it, right? And what's funny is dilated pupils in people who are assigned female at birth who have reproductive anatomy and go through those hormonal changes every month, that's part of their cycle. Their pupils dilate, as part of that cycle. And it's a part of the cycle that signifies that, there something could happen there. They could become pregnant. So these men were picking up on that subconsciously, or at least this is evidence that they were. So it's really funny, because you might think, oh man, I'm really attracted to this person for any number of reasons, but really it might actually just be like an evolutionary thing that's working behind the screen, and you have no idea. And who knows how many things are like that, right? And then it's like, yeah, really, do we have free will? How much say do we actually have in our own choices if we're making choices and we think we know the reason that we're making them, and then it turns out that there's an entirely different reason that we're not even aware of, right? But our biology is aware of it and is doing it for us. And it's not like anybody else is making that decision for you. That's still you making that decision, right? Do I think we have free will? I have no idea. Um, I I'll say two things on it. The first thing I'll say about free will is there's a lot of evidence to say that we don't. In the realm of neuroscience, I think if you talk to every neuroscientist on the planet who's actually done research, in the field of cognition and stuff, I think that probably half or more are going to say we don't have free will. That's what I think. And that's what I suspect. I don't know that that's true, but I know a lot of people subscribe to that idea. The second thing I'm going to say about free will is I really like a lot of the TikTok videos of people who are going, "Oh man, I just realized I had free will," and then they go do something absurd, uh, which is just enjoyable. But at the same time, it's like, man, if we really don't have free will, then what is the process going on behind this, right? It's pretty interesting. Yeah. Do we have free will? I don't know. I don't know. And generally, if I don't know something, I don't really think about it. I think about it, but I don't like I don't have an opinion on it, you know. Thanks for the questions. Yeah. Let's see what else. I'm sure we have plenty of evidence against free will. Uh, Capitalism and society limits our free will significantly. Yeah, that's another thing. If we had free will, maybe we just don't even know how to use it, right? Because we're so everything is so gate kept in society, especially like here in the US. I know the UK is pretty bad. I've been seeing a lot of videos from people who are just really upset in the UK right now. And that's hard to look at. I've seen some Canadians pretty upset with Canada too. It's hard to look at and know that other people are dealing with some of the same stuff. At least their gun problems aren't, they don't have gun problems there. Boy, howdy. Our country sucks sometimes. Um, but yeah, capitalism is definitely screwing us. Um, it's so funny that we participate in this too. We're actively participating in it, right? We're keeping it going. We could break it if we all got together, but I think it's impossible to get large of a number of people to just move together on one thing. It seems that almost as though by design, we're really pushed away from each other and really divided to keep us from acting together, right? Although I'm not a politics channel, I'm a brain channel, and I will talk about the brain and not politics. So that's the end of that. um, One thing I do know is that I love my community. I love my community of really intelligent and kind people, and that's what I want to create and surround myself with. And I'm really grateful for all of you. Thanks for keeping it that way here. I have had the very rare and occasional comment on YouTube, and some on TikTok. Fewer on TikTok, but I've got a few on YouTube where they're like people are like, it seems like they're purposefully trying to spread misinformation. It's really weird. But I try to go in there quickly and get rid of it and block that person if I can. Um, Lunch is over. Hey, thanks so much, Amy, for joining us for lunch. Yeah, dang it. I wish you could stay longer, but I hope you have a good time at work. I hope your day goes well. Yeah, thanks so much for the questions, and thanks for being part of our community. Yeah, I'm just trying to think. Okay, I want to read more on Lebet and his experiments. Benjamin Lebet. All right. Yeah. We'll do a video about that. I'll do a video on the photographs too. The facial photographs. Okay. What else do we have? Yeah, we did. I don't know. I don't know what else to talk about. There's a billion things to talk about. I don't even have one. What do you want to hear about? The problem with me is there are a million things to talk about, and I feel like I've talked about all of them. So I'm not sure what people want to hear about. Who's heard what? Who's done what? I do want to do a sensory series. I was thinking about that too, by the way. I really want to do a sensory series where I teach you about all the senses, the systems, right? Teach you about the eyes, teach you about the ears, teach you about our proprioception or our somatosensation, nociception, things like that. But I think it would be a little bit too difficult for me to do like a short form video on any one of them. I could do like longer videos, and I know I can do that on TikTok, but if I try to upload them to YouTube, they'll only show it to my followers. They won't show it to anybody else, which is interesting that they do that. If anybody knows why they do that, please let me know. Yeah. Yeah, I'd like to do that, and maybe I will. Why are migraines a thing, and why do they suck so much more than a regular headache? I don't know. Actually, there's a lot of research being done in that area, and I feel like the consensus is most people don't actually know. There are theories about vascular dilation in the skull, because we feel like a migraine is really deep, like inside our brain, right? But it's not. The brain doesn't feel pain. There is the vasculature on the outside of the brain feels pain. Your vasculature in general feels pain. It has your blood vessel. Sorry, this is kind of gross if you don't want to hear about blood vessels, but that's kind of the way it goes. They stretch, and that's part of their main function. Yeah, I'm sorry. But like if they stretch enough, that can cause pain. But it's like, if they're meant to stretch, why are they causing pain all of a sudden? And maybe it's not so much that they're stretching as it is how quickly that change has occurred. Some people think that it has to do with blood pressure as well. And there are different things, different remedies that people try. Some people can do a scalp massage that will work to remove a migraine. Some people will, take in caffeine. A lot of headache medications include caffeine, and it has to do with vasoconstriction and changing that stretch that's put on your vascular tissue. Yeah. There is kind of an older theory on pain too. It's called the gate theory of pain processing. And it's a little bit outdated, but it's still kind of useful sometimes when we talk about pain. And so it basically goes like this. Most of your circuits are off until you turn them on. For instance, with touch, right? My touch receptors are off until something touches me, and then they turn on to let me know that something's touching me. That's generally how a lot of your sensors go. Your eyes don't work that way, and also nociception appears to not work that way. For those who don't know, nociception is your sense of pain. So what sense of pain actually looks like is it's always on. And so you're not actually in pain all the time, but you're actually in a lack of pain all of the time. And once you sever that connection or shut that connection off, that's when you feel pain. So it's kind of interesting that you're like naturally always in a state of pain, but with a circuit that's shutting your pain off by actively being turned on. And when you remove that circuit or shut that circuit off, then you feel the pain that is kind of always going. It basically tells you like there's a serious problem, right? Yeah, so there's the gate theory of pain processing, which basically says, pain's always going, but it can't get its way to the brain until you open the gate. What about chronic pain? Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, gate theory is pretty sweet. It's old, but it does work still with pain. Pekka, I will answer your question in just a second. But yeah, so when we look at like migraine medication, how we treat migraines, we definitely use the gate theory a lot for that sort of thing. So it's kind of like, oh, you always have this pain, but you just don't process it until the gate is opened, right? And for people with migraine, chances are that for whatever reason, that gate is open in that region. With chronic pain, it depends, Pekka. It depends. But I actually have research that I've done on this with spinal cord injury. Um, I have a paper that's called Dendritic Spines and what is it? It's Dendritic Spines and Pain Memory, I think. We have a couple papers. Let's see. Uh, uh, so I worked on this paper as part of Andrew Tan's lab at Yale University. I think it's Dendritic Spines and Pain Memory. I'm the second name. Yep, I'm the second name on this paper, right after Curtis Benson, who's my colleague, and Marika Reimer, my other colleague, the one that did that lovely bead work back there, is the third name on this paper. But yeah, we did this as part of Andrew Tan's lab, where we were looking at neuropathic pain, which is obviously debilitating. And it's like, well, what is the mechanism for this? And when you look at it on a cellular level, not even on a cellular level, like deeper than that, right? It looks like chronic pain in spinal cord injury, and I can't say for other types of chronic pain, but in spinal cord injury, it looks like long-term potentiation. So if you know what long-term potentiation is, or if you don't, it's LTP or long-term memory. And the way that it's formed is through the process of developing dendritic synapses, right? And these synaptic connections are how we form memories. It takes about 100 of them. It's estimated to be about 100 dendritic synapses to form one aspect of a memory, say like hair color, right? Or something. So in spinal cord injury, we know that people, if these neurons survive, assuming that the nerve damage isn't so severe that the nerves just die completely and paralyze you, you may experience severe pain. Even if some of your nerves do die, the ones that are left over may develop a long-term memory about what that pain is like, and just keep relaying that pain to you. Yeah, which is really interesting. It's almost like I don't know. I don't want to like use buzzwords or anything, but it's a little bit like your spinal cord has PTSD, you know? Kind of like, if you've ever seen somebody with PTSD or if you've experienced it yourself, you might have flashbacks. And sometimes those flashbacks are so severe that they're 24/7, right? You're just always in that moment. Or at least like I've experienced it that way. And uh, yeah, so it seems like the spinal cord may be doing something like that in spinal cord injury. I imagine other forms of chronic pain might operate similarly, right? Yeah. That part of your body remembers the pain and it's stuck in that cycle because that memory is being rebuilt constantly. Which makes me think, if that is the case, and it seems like a lot of the research points that direction, there are we use to prohibit the development of AMPA and NMDA receptors, which are required for memory formation, for dendritic spine formation, right? And we use those medications for people who have phobias, right? And we also use them, the military uses them on soldiers to allow them to do horrible things and not remember the things, right? Experimentally. So, like, I wonder if anybody's tried that. If you have chronic pain and it seems like it's working, kind of being rebuilt the way a memory is, if we could try one of these medications that do that, and try to get the body to like unremember the pain. I just wonder if it's possible. That'd be an interesting thing. I'm going to look into that. And I realize that the correct word for unremember is forget, but it's not really, because I'm not talking about the process of forgetting. I'm talking about the process of severing the ability to remember. Forgetting is kind of a different thing, but There's a spider on my ceiling. Oh no. He's probably fine. I actually really like spiders. Thanks, Mackenzie. What kind of spider is it? We have jumping spiders. I had this jumping spider out in the driveway, and he was obsessed with me. He kept sticking onto my wife's car, and anytime I got anywhere close to him, he would chase me. And he'd like spin his web and throw it at me, and he was like climbing on it, trying to get to me. At one point, I was taking a picture of him because I'm like, "What's with this little guy?" And he jumped on me. He was pretty cool. Yeah, I like spiders a lot. Spiders are fascinating. I love them a lot. Yeah. My wife doesn't like them so much. Thanks, Arm. Dope. What's next? What do we want to know about the brain? Kind of feel like I'm out of breath. I always talk forever and then I run out of breath. And I'm like, geez, I wonder how long I can actually talk before I pass out. Except for the huntsman. What's wrong with the huntsman? Are they big and scary? Please don't pass out. Ooh, they are big and scary. I like them. Oh, these, you know what? Harm, these look like those spiders that we saw. I know these are Australian, but there was a spider that was in Harm's brother in law's garage, and it was huge. And let me tell you, I picked it up because it was dead. I picked it up and it weighed exactly about as much, or maybe a tiny bit more than an average mouse. And the reason I know that is because I've worked with a lot of mice in research. Uh, the spider was terrible. Phobias and phobia development. Yeah, that spider was scary. Okay, here's how phobias work. Here's how we think they work. So most fears are not innate. We don't have very many innate fears. What I mean by innate is, oh, I guess I got to prove I'm human. Hang on. TikTok does that now and again. Um, so something innate means that it's genetic. It is a, what's the word for that? Um, yeah, it's just a reflexive behavior. Um, so the things that humans fear innately are falling and loud noise. I think there's one other one. There are like basically three fears that humans have. Like we're not afraid of fire, right? We have to learn to be afraid of fire. We touch something and it's hot and related to fire, and we go, "Ow, that sucks!" And now forevermore, I'm afraid of fire because that sucked. But if you put fire next to a baby will go up and touch that fire because a baby is not scared of fire, right? Not at least not at first. They just don't know any better. But if you like bang a loud bell or something near a baby, they will cry because they hate it. Loud noises are scary innately. So it's like, how do we go from not being afraid of something to being afraid of something? Well, it usually comes with some sort of condition. We pair that. We It's dangerous to. Like this was on with like the little Albert experiments. I won't get into much because I don't really like talking about it. Also, there's a lot of controversy around the truthfulness to the little Albert experiments, but um, essentially, you can get somebody to be afraid of something, right? And that's kind of how phobias work. The general consensus is, well, at some point in time, that person must have gained that phobia because they associated it with something detrimental or very scary in some way. Um, for instance, if you are high up on a ladder and you fall and you get really and you're really injured, you have to go to the hospital, go through all this stuff, you probably will avoid ladders because just even the sight of a ladder will scare you. Sometimes people who get in really severe car accidents are afraid to even get in a car, right? Um, because they get a phobia around driving. Some people become agoraphobic and they get afraid to even leave the house, right? Because they're afraid that bad will happen to them if they leave. And the way agoraphobia manifests can be like pretty wild on its own. Some people are afraid to even look at a sharp object because they're afraid that somehow magically they're just going to start hurting themselves with it, even if they've never had any inclination to do such a thing before, right? People can have these kinds of phobias, and it's hard to say how they gained the phobia, but the proposed mechanism is that they had paired the stimulus with something that was scary somehow. A lot of times, these phobias, people don't really know why they have them and probably were developed as children. But some people know directly what caused the phobia. Some people know exactly the moment that they got it, and that sort of reinforcement. Thanks. Yeah. That reinforcement kind of helps to fulfill this circuitry. And we use Hebb's rule, right? Neurons that fire together wire together. That's not exactly Hebb's rule, but it's basically that's the colloquialism of Hebb's rule. And so the more you fire those synapses, and by those synapses I mean the stimulus that you're afraid of and the feelings of fear, the more you fire those things together, the stronger that circuitry becomes. Such that every time you see that stimulus, you become more afraid. And it's compounding and it's a feedback. It's a vicious feedback cycle, right? You get more and more scared the more and more you see it. This is how a phobia forms. It's a memory, right? And so, like going in line with what I was talking about earlier, there are medications that stop the development of AMPA and NMDA receptors, right? And since those are required for the sustainability of the metabolism of dendritic spines, meaning required for the memory to keep rebuilding itself, if you put that drug into somebody about 15 minutes before you present the phobic stimulus, they recall their memory, but their memory can't rebuild itself. So remember, memory doesn't work like a perfect recording. Memory has to be rebuilt every time you remember it. So every time you remember, you're essentially remembering the last time you remembered rather than the actual original event, right? Okay, so in order to keep remembering that memory, you have to rebuild that memory for next time, right? So if we, allow this drug to take effect like 15 minutes, then we have somebody remember, then for next time, it can't because that mechanism is physically disabled, right? And it works profoundly with striking results. Like people lose their phobias after like 2 or 3 treatments. Like it's pretty amazing. And also great evidence for the proposed mechanism. It's pretty awesome. Yeah. I don't know. Phobias are wild. I was pretty obsessed with like learning about phobias for a long time in my career, my academic career. Yeah. Thanks for the question. Ilya saw horror films turn me into a lifelong horror fan. Oh, I don't know. That one's a tough one because there's all sorts of reasons people like horror films, right? People can like horror films because they gain a sense of catharsis. If so, kidding. But there are people who like horror films because there's something to do with having undergone trauma and being able to process a traumatic event. Be able to process a traumatic event with control over that event, knowing that event is not to do with the reason some people really trauma, but there is someone else's theoretical trauma in the safety of being able to pause the video and walk away if they need to. Horror movies and games. Me too. I love horror movies and games, but Harm knows I can't play too many of them. I love them. I will watch too many horror movies. I will play too many horror video games. But there comes a point where, uh, like my heart gets weird, and I just gotta like stop. I used to stop. I just love that stuff. As I got older, I just yeah. But I mean, so there's something to be said for like, well, do you gain a sense of catharsis? Do you gain some sort of, you get some sort of reward out of it, right? Or you wouldn't be doing it. Reward is excitability, right? Stimulating your amygdala when you watch horror and it actually scares you. So like that's another thing too. Like, is the movie actually scary? Sometimes we watch horror movies because they're stupid, right? And they're funny. And so we laugh about them. That's rewarding, especially if we get to bond with other people. That's a powerful mechanism. And it's very rewarding. But do we watch movies because they're legitimately scary? That's a different mechanism. Now we are exciting the amygdala, which are required for our fear response. A lot of people know that part, but what they don't know is that it's not just your fear response, it's any sort of hyper excitability. So it can be good excitable too, right? Which means that we use our amygdala for emotional processing. And that means that we use it for memory formation, right? So we use our amygdala for our sense of reward, things that are rewarding, right? That being said, when we stimulate and we activate the amygdala, that could just be it. We find this experience to be a rewarding experience because it's an exciting experience, right? Yeah. Could be as simple as that. I still need to do a video on that one gal. She is the gal who had she hit her head or something. She was in an accident or something happened, and she severed the connection of her amygdala, and it caused her to no longer be able to feel fear. Sorry, just making a note to remember to make a video about it later. I'm going to put my mic down just for a sec. I need to take a drink. Oh yeah, for sure, Pekka. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, it's another thing is like it's a thing about fantasy, right? Like I want to be able to go experience something I've never experienced. A lot of times like people do that in all sorts of ways. They play D&D, they watch movies that are romantic or like comedic. You might watch like Marvel movies or something adventurous, right? And you get like that sense of fantasy. People like these kinds of fantasies, right? I like these kinds of fantasies. I'll go and watch the movie and enjoy it. But there comes a point when there's too much of that, right? It's like, oh, all these different things are kind of a little bit too the same. And that's when horror gets to be fun because it's always like different. It's like it hits different, you know? Fear is a really important tool to have, but also not having it would be kind of nice. Yeah, I think not having fear would be really nice. I think perceptually it would be really nice, but it would put you in a lot of danger, right? Going back to that woman who couldn't feel fear because she had damaged her amygdala, right? That really interested some scientists. Hello, real bikers. What's up? That really interested some scientists, and so they started testing that theory on rats, right, and or on mice. And so they went into the mouse's brain and surgically ablated. Ablate means to cut or damage, sever the amygdala in the mouse. And after doing that to a mouse, they put the mouse in front of a cat. Normally, mice smell a cat and they book it, they run. Normally, mice will run if they smell anything or feel anything. They're very sensitive to vibration, right? And they hide. Um, Real bikers, we're just talking about the brain. If you got any questions or anything you want to talk about, let me know. But anyway, so the mice are running around. They'll hide in their little dens. They burrow. They like darkness. They stay away from the light. They like to just hide. right? That's their thing. That's their whole thing. Nice hide. But when you ablate their amygdala, they start exploring a lot more. And they'll explore whether a cat is present or not. So much so that they'll actually like walk between the cat's legs. They'll explore the cat. They'll sniff it, nibble at it, eat. And, obviously for this experiment, you don't want a cat that's going to kill the mice. So usually you get a cat that's very friendly. But it's really weird for a mouse and a cat to be friendly together, right? It's very abnormal. But that's what we see, right? And so it's like, okay, great, this is a nice cat, there's something to be said about being, assigned and presenting female, right? Or even just presenting female in general, and not having fear mechanisms, because it's like if your fear is damaged, how much of that is protecting you from certain things. Conjuring 3, I have not seen it. I've heard the Conjuring movies are pretty scary. I should watch them. Production value and acting is 10 out of 10. Jump scares perfectly timed. It's good to hear. I'm glad that you like it. Storyline top tier. Excellent. I'll have to watch it for sure. Harm, put it on our list. Harm and I have been watching a lot of horror movies, not recently, but we used to watch a lot of them. And we wanted to like make a list where we rate them and maybe talk about them in Here's Where Things Get Weird, a podcast, by the way, that we are probably going to start up again soon. Thanks, Harm. Yeah, we're going to start that podcast up again soon. Takes place in London. Oh, cool. That's where you're like, you're not in London, are you? Where are you, Pekka? I can't remember. I thought you're somewhere around there though, right? Or am I thinking of somebody else? Yeah, sorry if I'm like going back and forth between cameras. I've got my YouTube camera and I've got my TikTok camera. But yeah, anybody who has any questions, feel free to speak up about the brain. That's your hometown. Oh, cool. Yeah. I've always wanted to go to London. I think it'd be cool to visit. I wanted to live there for a while, but then I heard it's like really expensive, and I don't know, it'd still be cool. I might move there. I wanted to go to college there, the University College London. I thought that would be really cool, study neuroscience there. Yeah, I've thought about it. Where are you at now? Are you still there? Or? Hi, home. That's your home hospital? Is that where you were born or what? Yeah, I think it'd be cool to. I think it'd be cool to go there and finish up my PhD, or I don't know, whatever degree they offer there. Yeah, that's cool. How do you like it, Pekka? I mean, obviously, you must like it pretty well if you're there still. What would your research focus on if you go back for your PhD? I'm not sure. I have a lot of areas of interest, um, so it's tough for me to want to narrow it down. I know other researchers that have tons of areas of interest as well, but usually to get your PhD, you got to narrow it down to something. I think I'd like to study PTSD. I'd like to study the neural mechanisms of PTSD, and how they relate to chronic illness. I think that's what I would like to study. I have serious progressive autoimmune disease, I'm guessing fibromyalgia, and severe ME/CFS. Spent a lot of time at UCL. I'm sorry to hear that, Pekka. That's why you wanted me to do that video, huh? I should probably do one on fibromyalgia, actually. Yeah. MECFS is no joke. Yeah, like I was doing research for that video that I did the other day, and man, it's rough to read about. Like, it's tough to believe. Well, for one thing, it's tough to believe just that if you don't have MECFS, it's hard. It's hard to believe that somebody could just think too hard. And by think too hard, it's not like you took an exam. It's not like you just got done with finals. It's like you literally just thought about what you wanted for lunch, right? And it's like your brain just depletes all its energy in one go with just something that should be like so innocuous, right? And then all of a sudden you're bedridden for like a day or two, or maybe longer. Uh, or like some people, man, a lot of people were sharing their stories with MECFS with me. It's like it's so disheartening to hear. Um, like one person was talking about how they did the laundry. They went to do the laundry. They folded like one item. They just folded one item, and then I see your question. I'll you keep trying to. Sorry, I'm okay. I'll read that in just a sec. Hang on one second, YouTube. But yeah, this person folded one item, and then they said they had to take a break and go take a nap for like 8 hours before they could try to start their laundry again. It's bananas. MECFS is just rough. I keep trying to make the lives, but haven't been able to. So I'm adding this comment to trick the less smart algorithm. That's awesome. Thank you, Resist Oppression. And if you can stay here for any longer, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. If you can't stay, I understand. But maybe if you're still here, leave a time in which works for you, and maybe I can try to go live around that time sometime. Yeah, I get such bad MECFS crashes after I film content, even if it's really simple stuff that I'm filming. Really, do you have like an example that you'd be willing to share with us? If not, like totally, you don't have to. I want to remind everybody always, like I'm so grateful people are willing to share their experiences with me. Sometimes people are a little too willing to share their experiences with me. Like somebody had said something in their comments about a horrible thing that happened to them when they were a child, and I was just like, man, I am a stranger on the internet. You maybe should not tell me this. But like, I am really grateful that people are willing and open to just give that information to me. But that being said, like, do not feel any pressure to ever offer your medical information to anybody, especially somebody you don't know that's on the internet. You know. But if you are willing to share, there are probably people who will benefit from your experience. I know that that video, the MECFS video, I didn't think that was going to take off. Hi, Fluffy family. How are you? It's good to see you here. I didn't think that video would take off, but then one person mentioned that they had MECFS and how it manifested. And all of a sudden, 20 other people started replying to them and having their own comments and saying, hey, this is my experience. Hey, does anybody know how to get help with this? Hey, you know, what are we going to do? Like, and so somebody would come in and say, oh, you know, this is how I got assessed with my doctor. Here are the things that I'm doing to kind of work on it. And it's just really awesome to see people like getting together. Like if I film a video lip syncing a popular audio or whatever, it can really take it out of me sometimes. It's so ridiculous. Yeah, it feels like lip syncing. You're not even singing, right? You're not like putting the breath out. It feels very forceful. Just the act of moving your lips, which is a very common act. And in theory, I don't know, but it kind of makes sense to me because your lips probably use a lot of mitochondria because you have a lot of muscles in your lips. And so if your mitochondria are not efficiently making ATP the way that happens in MECFS, it makes sense that you'd run out of energy very quickly. Grateful that I'd still consider my ME to be more in the mild to moderate category. I empathize deeply for those who have it worse than I do. Yeah, totally. It's rough, and it's a spectrum, right? There's a scale. Yeah, I'm trying to think of like some of the things people said in my comments. Also, I don't know how much I want to share about the people in my comments because it's like, yeah, they gave that information to me. It's open and available for you to read it, but at the same time, I don't know if I should talk about it. If they'd be comfortable with me talking about it, I don't know. But yeah, it was pretty amazing to read everybody's stories. I'm so grateful. Oh, man, This is the thing I love about social media. I love this. Like, there's a lot of things that I kind of dislike about social media, but this one thing that I love about social media and the fact that I get to be a part of it is that I created a video with your help. Like, you guys told me what you wanted to hear about. Hi, Pete. Good to see you. I will read that comment in just 1 second. You came up with an idea for a video you wanted, and I gave you that video, right, to the best of my ability. And so many people just got together in the comments and started helping each other. I love that, right? Like, how many of you were talking to each other before you even followed me? Who knows? Maybe a lot of you, maybe not very many of you. I don't know. Maybe I brought some people together, right? Maybe my video brought some people together. I don't know. It's humbling and it's a beautiful thing to get to be a part of, because it's like I feel like everybody kind of wants to be a part of something that's bigger than them. And this is my something that's kind of bigger than me, is that I get to be a part of your guys' lives. And I love that. I really appreciate that. Thank you for making me a part of your life today and just being here with me. Pete says extreme neurofatigue is MECFS. Yes, that's true. I'm trying to learn whatever I can until I hopefully get into treatment at the Rusk Regenerative Therapy Program. Working on that since summer, a work in progress. Pete, good luck to you. I hope that you get what you need there. Please feel free to check in with me if you want. I would be more than happy to hear about your progress and just knowing how that goes for you. Also, like, again, don't feel obligated to share your medical information with me at all, or anybody on the internet, right? But if you get treatment and it really helps, I know a lot of people here on YouTube and over on TikTok that would probably benefit from that information if you feel like sharing. I hope you get what you need. And if you do, maybe some other people can get what they need too. Never heard of that program. Yeah, I've not heard of that program either. I'll have to look into that. The Rusk Regenerative Therapy Program. Yeah, because this might be a good video to make too. It's NYU? No kidding. It's like here. Oh, okay. Rusk Regenerative Therapy Program. Harm, we should look into that. I'm going to look more into that, Pete. Thank you so much for sharing that. Oh, you're in Staten Island? No kidding. We're on Long Island. Yeah. We're not too far from each other. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'll look into it. Yeah. We're neighbors. You're from the place with the vampires, right? People do share and overshare. Comment section is amazing on a lot of medical videos. Yeah. I'm really grateful for all of you. I'm so grateful for everybody on YouTube and on TikTok and on Instagram. I got to figure out a way to go live there too. But the one time I did go live on Instagram, only one person showed up and they ended up coming over to TikTok. So my videos do pretty good on Instagram, but I don't know that my lives do that well. It seems like they do pretty well here on TikTok. I think because I have the biggest following on TikTok. It's like almost 350,000 people. Man, that's so phenomenal. That's so impossible for me to really wrap my head around that many people, following my channel. That's amazing. Oh, lost me for a second. What did you miss? Also, thanks for keeping track of that for me. Yeah. Also, hey, Pete and everybody else on YouTube. I don't know how many people are here right now. We made it to 2,000 followers, which are subscribers, which means that we've gained 1,000 subscribers in about a week. That's amazing. Thank you for that. Our community is growing and it's really cool. I can't express enough appreciation to everybody for being here and just helping me grow. And also TikTok, we are so close to monetizing. I'm like 7,000 views away. So if you can help me do that, I don't know how much money that will be, how much money I could make. Maybe it won't be that much at first, but it's a start. And if I could get something coming in, I'd really like to put that towards my videos. My videos on TikTok also go onto YouTube, obviously. So it'll help my TikTok videos as well. but I'd really like to make better videos. I'd like to get like a professional editor, maybe on one or two of my videos every once in a while. I think that would improve my content quite a bit because I can only do so much on my own. I could sit there and edit videos, but then I wouldn't be able to produce anything. TikTok algorithms, trying to learn. Yeah. Oh, older guy, so I don't know anything about TikTok. That's fine. Hey, Pete, kick it here over on YouTube, you know? I love YouTube. I'm trying to monetize on YouTube as well. I've met most of the criteria. I'm just really far off from the views. And I think that has to do with the fact I don't have enough hours. And I think it's because I don't have enough long form content. And that's because I'm not really set up for long form content right now. But I do plan on filming long form content once Harm and I are permanently in this house and I have a whiteboard and I can actually like do some lectures. Then I can do that. I have some other things, kind of other irons in the fire as well. But although I'm excited about them, I don't want to talk too much about them right now. Fluffy Family, the whole city. I missed what that's about. Can you remind me? Sorry. You do not have to be quiet and listen. You can check out whatever you want. You can ask questions. Please, that's why I'm here, right? That's why we're live. Benny Boy, what's up? Someone just shared this live with me. I'll sub up and watch your content. Thanks, Benny. Yeah, come be part of our community. If you don't know what we're about, I'm a neuroscientist. I've been in the field. I've done research, been published. I've been doing research in neuroscience for about 10 years, maybe a little bit more. I have a master's degree from an accredited university. That's kind of important. But the main thing is I teach neuroscience for free. And I'm trying to like gear my way towards that on YouTube, doing like long form videos. I want to do neuroscience lectures that teach people about the biology behind neuroscience, but also about the psychology and how the biology forms the mind, right? That's what I'm gearing towards. So your support matters a lot, but also my community is pretty freaking cool. Feel free to talk to people here because we all like to share. Oh, you're right. Yeah, my TikTok following is 350K. It's about the size of a city, like a good size city too. Most of the cities where I've lived are very small. Definitely not near 350,000 people. So it's pretty wild to believe that many people are following me on TikTok. That's insane. Thank you again, all of you, for your support. And thank you, everybody on YouTube, for your support as well. Like I was saying, as soon as I can get monetized, I want to make my videos better. I want to be able to include graphics. I want to be able to hire people that are really professional and know how to do that sort of thing without the use of AI, right? Yeah, super interesting. Yeah, if you have any questions about the brain, I'll answer them to the best of my ability. If I can't, I will write them down. I'll look them up and I'll make a video about them just for you. Or I'll talk to you about them next live, or both, whatever. I don't care. I like talking about the brain, and everybody here likes talking about the brain. I believe in my time, we will figure out how to fix some forms of dyslexia. You think so? I have you ever seen that dyslexic font, the font that's supposed to help people with dyslexia? I actually have dyslexia, and I did feel like the font helped me a bit. I don't know how we'll cure it though, and I actually have a reason why I think that we even have dyslexia. So part of it is that people tend to be, so with your working memory, you have two really powerful tools that we talk about. One of those tools is the visuospatial sketchpad, which is your ability to mentally represent an object in 3 dimensions, rotate it, move around with it. And then you have your phonological loop, which allows you to sort of verbally keep something in memory, or even abstract ideas, right? It's not always verbal. It can be an abstract idea. And people tend to be really good at one and less good at the other. Some people are good at both, but like you're usually better at one, right? And there are some people who can only do one. Like roughly 20% of the population cannot form a mental image. or something like that. No. Sorry, I got that statistic wrong. The 20% I'm thinking of are people who don't have an inner monologue. I'm not sure what percent of people have aphasia, which means that they can't have a mental image. But either way, people who are really good at rotating three-dimensional objects also tend to have dyslexia at higher rates. I'm not sure why that is, but I suspect it has to do with that mental rotation, because I know for me, I get B and P and Q mixed up and D mixed up all the time. And it's because I think I spatially rotate them in my mind without meaning to. Why are some people better at visualizing things than others? I think because they exercise those processes, right? Um, it all has to do with how you record memory. Here's an interesting thing about memory is that around 3 years old is when we learn how to talk. And as soon as we learn how to talk, we learn how to narrate what's happening to us because we like to share what happened to us, right? And that's hard to do when you don't know how to talk. But once you know how to talk, you can say, hey, mom, guess what happened? Hey, friend, guess what I did, right? And so the moment we learn how to do that, we start learning how to remember things through that narration process, right? And for some of us, for most of us, that'll be an internal monologue. And for about 20% of us, there will be no internal monologue, but the narration ability, that capability still exists. But for a lot of people, especially people who don't read a lot of books or do a lot of writing, I think that they become better at visualization because their their memory mechanisms heavily rely on their capacity to remember things physically. And I think that people who spend time developing their verbal skills are better at remembering things in a semantic sort of matter. So I think that they actually spend more time exercising those parts of their brain. Yeah. Terrible to imagine and rotate anything. I have very hard time to visualize anything. Fluffy, do you read a lot of books, or do you? I know you're okay. So I know you're dyslexic. Does that stop you from reading? I'm dyslexic. I read a ton though, and I do feel like it helps sometimes. Between 1 and 4 people have aphantasia. Okay, gotcha. Sorry, 1 in 4 people. 1 in 4% of people. That's what I meant to say. So just 1 in 4 people. 1 and 4. uh, definitely not a dyslexic with rotation. Interesting. For me, I know one of my dyslexic issues is that I start my sentence with the beginning of the second sentence and splice it with the second half of the first sentence. And I don't know why I do that. But like that's how I read. I see the two sentences at the same time, and I'll start with the second sentence and then read the first sentence to finish it. I don't know why my eyes do that, but I'll do it without even perceiving that I've done it. What is a lot? Me, I don't know what a lot is. I read probably the equivalent, and I say the equivalent because I read a lot of different documents. But I read probably the equivalent of like, I don't know, probably maybe 20 books a month, I would say. Probably about as much as 20 books a month. On like a good day, right? Like I'm reading probably that rate when I'm reading a lot. But there are times when I don't read at all. Um, I do listen more than actually using eyes for reading. That makes sense, sure. Often read. It doesn't really matter how the book lays as long as I have good light. Okay, good, good. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like reading more has improved my dyslexia, but also it kind of depends. When I'm reading a lot, I have I have fewer dyslexic problems. But when I'm not reading very often and I come back to reading, I notice my problems basically come right back. They don't ever leave me. But I am really good at mentally rotating objects and imagining them as well. Resist oppression. My best advice for ADD, ADHD, and dyslexia: buy some yellow tinted glasses. Helps me a ton if it's if it's paper books, at least, brain games. Interesting. I want to look more into that. You said if you wear yellow tinted glasses, it helps you with your dyslexia and your ADHD. Okay. Thanks for sharing that. What prompted that? The yellow contrast. They sell sheet inserts as well. What prompted that? Did somebody tell you to do that, or how did you get that idea? I'm really interested in that. I want to know more about this yellow tint. Um, I have vertigo. I rotate myself. Yeah, I sometimes get vertigo as well. Do mechanical engineering, and so I have safety glasses that are yellow. I noticed a big difference in retention and ability. I am baffled by that. I'm just trying to think. Well, like, I'm not totally baffled. Weird things can happen. I was thinking the first thing that comes to mind is how if you look at a blue screen, it wakes you up, and that has to do with your level of alertness. Perhaps something about looking at yellow also would increase your level of alertness, which might increase your capacity to pay attention. Yeah, try this out, Harm. Tell me if it helps. We'll get you some yellow tinted glasses and see if it works. Reading that uneven text you were talking about, yes, it does help. Yeah, I like it a lot. I don't really use it. I haven't seen a lot of documents with it, but I do feel like we should probably be using it more because I feel like it really does help me, and I know quite a few other people that dyslexic text helps a lot too. I know it's like not the prettiest, it looks kind of funky, but it does seem to work pretty well. Yeah. I wonder if it has to do with the eyes being able to rest, the high contrast of the black and white being too excitatory. Uh, maybe. I think it might have more to do with like having a proper focal point. I think for most people who don't have dyslexia, they read the first and last letter and then they fill in the rest of the information. I think that people who have dyslexia tend to bounce around the word a little more than that. And so it's hard to focus on the first and last letter. And so I think things get confused, such as chopping the first half of one word and the second half of another word and then splicing those together into one word and going, what word did I just read? Oh, for ADHD, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. Harm, are you familiar with the font that we're talking about? And if so, have you used it? Does it help you with ADHD? I don't think you have dyslexia, right? At least I don't know if we've ever talked about that. Does it help you? It doesn't help you. Okay. Good. That's good to know. Okay. Dyslexic font doesn't help with ADHD. Yellow tinted glasses, maybe. It works for at least one person. But we need a better n than n equals one, right? We need n equals as many as possible. So, people out there with dyslexia, including myself, let's get some yellow tinted glasses and see how resist oppression's technique works. Maybe some scientist, if it does work, they can name this technique after you. That'd be pretty cool. All right, hang on one second. I'm gonna take a drink of water. Is it ever weird just watching a person drink water? You're like, you're here hanging out with me, and I'm just gonna do a bodily function real quick. It feels weird to me. When your serotonin is high, I think everything looks more yellow. That's interesting. I've never heard that idea. Kids see more yellow than adults. Not weird at all. Well, kids see yellow for a reason, though. So part of the reason why kids see yellow, and this is actually very like little kids that see yellow, but typically as you get older, you don't see so much. Has to do with the way that they perceive wavelengths visually. and it's because their receptors can pick up on certain wavelengths, but not others as well. When you're born, your ears are pretty much, assuming you're born like and developed typically, right? Your ears are pretty much developed all the way, like an adult's ears, but your eyes aren't. Your eyes are like, when you're born, your eyes suck. You can see like maybe 8 inches in front of your face or less, um, and you can't make sense of shapes. You can see shapes, but you don't have understanding of depth, so you can't perceive anything as depth. It just looks like a two-dimensional surface for a while you're trying to figure that out. And then the other thing is you don't have all your cones in your retina. Some of them are still developing, so you really can only see very few colors, and then you start to develop your perception of other colors over time. Again, assuming that you're typically developed. Voyeuristic on TikTok, ew. Don't sleep for 3 days, and you will probably see all yellow too. Oh no. Maybe do sleep though. I don't want to go to those lengths to be able to conquer my dyslexia. Yeah, kids are weird. Kids are weird. I like them because they're fantastic. They're fun and they're odd. Sorry for slamming my mic down like a jerk. Yeah, I got to get a new camera. This camera is always like zooming in and out. It's not so much a problem on my phone over at TikTok, but I have an old webcam that I'm using for YouTube, and it zooms in and out randomly. I just can't make any sense of it. It's kind of an old one. Yeah, that would be lovely if I could get monetized enough to be able to make enough money to be able to buy a new camera. Would be fantastic. That comes after the videos, though. Videos come first. Equipment can come later, assuming people keep supporting me. When cataracts are removed, people see colors brighter. I think they see more warm than gray. Is that true? That's interesting. Um, I guess that makes sense, because people with cataracts, right? Your lens is becoming like foggy, I guess. I don't know if it's your lens. You're developing a cataract, which I think is like behind the lens. Um, but it would make sense that that would dull your sense of vision. Oh, maybe it mimics childlike vision. I don't know. That would be really interesting. Yeah, we got to replace this camera. My microphone too. I don't know how well this sounds. Hopefully, it sounds okay. But I have to like. It seems like I have to be pretty close to it to get it to work. It was a really nice microphone when I bought it. For those who don't know, I'm talking about my Snowball, which I'm using for YouTube right now. I'll have to check it out, do some like tuning, and see if I can get it to work a little bit better. It's just like it sucks not having good equipment. That's like the worst too, because it's like it doesn't matter how good your content is, if the sound quality is bad or the video quality is bad. A lot of people just tune right out because it's like it's unbearable to watch. And I get it. I don't want to force you to watch something bad that I'm making. But someday, maybe somebody will get me something for Christmas. I'm just kidding. Don't worry about it. Um, what else do we want to talk about? The eyeballs are really cool. I want to do a sensory series. That's going to be one of the first things I do for long form content. I want to make lectures on the sensory systems because they're fantastic. Each one of them is different, completely different. They all work completely different, and they're bananas. Their mechanisms. The eyes are really cool, right? The eyes do really weird stuff, which means that you can produce some really weird optical illusions as well, which are really fun. Sound quality is important. Lots of us have slight hearing impairment. Yeah, for sure. I remember back when I first started TikTok, and a bunch of people were like, use captions, but it was before TikTok had automatic captions. So, man, videos took me a lot longer when I had to like put my captions in. Uh, I'm so glad that Yeah, I'm glad captions are commonplace too. I'm really glad that TikTok's captions work a lot better too. I don't know how well YouTube's work. I know last time I saw YouTube's captions, they were pretty good, but they had some issues. TikTok's also used to have issues, but I've noticed lately their audio capture for like their captions is a lot better. It's pretty amazing. Like I barely have to correct anything, if at all. And like I'm talking about neuroanatomy too. They used to get everything wrong with neuroanatomy. They just didn't know those terms. Um, yeah, it was a nightmare for sure. It was really tough, but I was still doing it because you don't want to be ableist and you want to make sure everybody can have access to you. But it takes a lot of work. I'm so glad that we have a tool that automates it for us. Sounds fine. Good. I'm glad my mic sounds okay. Yeah, maybe I need a different setup too. I do have that light that I use for my drawing table. I wonder if I could pull the snowball off and put that on there and kind of like bring it closer to my face. That might actually work better. I might try that next time. Or maybe if I'm making like a video, maybe for our podcast. For those who don't know, we have a podcast. It's called Here's Where Things Get Weird. We haven't put anything on it in years. But we are potentially going to start it back up soon. Video on TikTok recently of a guy who woke up from surgery and was speaking a language that he didn't know. Is that actually possible? That is possible. It's not that he didn't know it; it's that he didn't know that he knew it. Weirdly enough, our subconscious is able to pick up on and retain things that we're not aware that it's doing. Yeah, I'm excited for the reboot. Also, uh, his case is not uncommon. It's uncommon in a sense, but like it's definitely not the only one. We've known people who've like woken up from comas and all of a sudden they spoke like fluent French. But then it's like if you get somebody who actually speaks French to come listen to them, it's like yeah, they're speaking it like fluently. It sounds fluent, but they're speaking like a child, so they don't really have like that good of an understanding. But it's like being a person who never spoke French before. That's a pretty big deal. I think it's because our brain stores information. And when we go to sleep, we consolidate that information. We make sense of it, right? When we're dreaming, that's how our brain determines what's worth keeping and what's worth throwing away. But like by throwing away, that doesn't necessarily mean the brain thinks it's useless. The brain just might store it somewhere where it's hard to access, right? And because our brains, here's an innate thing humans do is language. We are genetically programmed to develop language. We know that from a lot of years of research and experience. People create language spontaneously, and it's because we are genetically programmed to speak. Not necessarily like verbally, but even if we can't speak verbally or we can't hear, even if we're born that way, and even if we're born into a community that is that way, we will learn how to speak with our hands, right? Never cared about cameras or video, but I was an amateur audio engineer and producer. Maybe one day I'll come to Long Island, set you up with my pro. Oh, that'd be sweet. Yeah, thanks. That would be very generous of you and much appreciated for not only for me but also for everybody following me. I'm sure. Dynamic mic and interface would do me well. Thank you. Yeah, that would be awesome. If you're willing to donate that, that would be fantastic. I know not just me, but everybody here would probably be really grateful. Um, what was I talking about? Oh, yeah. So sometimes we have stuff stored in our subconscious mind, and we're just not really aware that it's there, right? Um, because the brain decided, sometimes the brain decides without you. Actually, most of the time, the brain is deciding without you in your brain, because you're a very small part of your brain. You're an important part of your brain, probably the most important part of your brain, aside from the functions that keep you alive and surviving. But like you are just a small part of your brain, and your brain is doing so much without your conscious awareness. So if your brain picks up language, it can probably consolidate some of that information and figure out a way to make sense of it, even if it never tells you consciously that it's done so. I can read 20 books a month, but it will not stay in my head. I wish memory was as great as yours. Oh, my memory is by no means amazing. Mine's okay, but like it really is about what you're reading and how you're reading it. I did make a video about this. It hasn't been posted yet, but we don't remember facts. We remember stories. We remember not what was told to us, but how it was told to us. And we really latch onto that. And that's because humans are very, we are very programmed for storytelling, right? We share experiences, and so we readily pick that information up. So it's like you can read 20 books, get the words, process them, and they go in your head and then right back out because you didn't make any sense of it and it didn't matter to you. If that's the case, put the book down. If it doesn't matter to you, put it down. Like you're not going to retain any of it. You're just wasting your time and your energy. What's the point? You know what I mean? Go find something that interests you. The reason I retain like 10% of what I read, and probably not that much more, which is common, I think, is because I'm reading stuff that I want to read. You know, it would be cool if you made a video about this. I can send the original video I saw if you want to stitch it. Yeah, send it to me. What happened? He woke up from like a head injury or what? Yeah, I'll see if I can find the time to do a video on that. This is community and this is what people do for each other. Yeah, you're right. Thank you. Yeah, and like I'm taking the time and I mean like I'm grateful. I'm so grateful for the opportunity to take the time to just share my knowledge with people. I have years of education and research experience and I want to share that. I want it to be free to you too. That's the hard part is making it free to you. It's really hard for me to do this while having a job. Like, so if I could make this my job, that would make it easier to do this. I would like to work towards that goal someday. But in order to do that, I have to get monetized. I'm so close too. You guys, our community has gotten me so close to monetization. I'm like 7,000 views away on TikTok. I'm quite a bit farther away on YouTube, but I do hope to get there eventually. I am making progress. It'll be a lot better once I can make long form videos for sure. Conjuring 2. Okay, that's fine. I still haven't seen it, so we definitely will watch it and we'll let you know what we think about it. Maybe we'll let you know on Here's Where Things Get Weird. Pete, thanks so much for being part of our community. Thank you, everybody, for being part of our community. I'm so grateful that you want to talk about the brain with me, and that you just want to be here and help each other. Like, when I see that in my comments, people just like reaching out, hey, I have dyslexia too. Hey, I also have MECFS, or oh, I also had this TBI, and here's what I did to fix it, or maybe I never fixed it and I'm just stuck with it forever, but I'm living with it. And other people are like, yeah, me too. Um, it's hard to put into words. It's really hard to put into words like what I'm seeing in my community. I love you guys and I really appreciate you, all of you. Uh, yeah, it's tough. Life is tough a lot of the time. And in my experience, it's been tough most of the time. And I see people going through really hard things, and it just makes me so happy to know that people are looking out for each other. And it is such a blessing that y'all are looking out for each other in my comments. Um, Thanks for allowing me to be like a hub for this community to like have a place to be. You need to get official dyslexia diagnosis to use it for your academic goals. Fluffy, what are you talking about? Sorry, I might have missed a comment. Nope. Oh, extra time for exams at school. Yeah, for sure. I think, accommodations should be everywhere. I have a student right now. So, for those who don't know, um, Harm and I quit our jobs to come help our friends renovate their house. One of our friends has cancer, and the other one started a rigorous grad program, and so they couldn't really work on their house by themselves. Just too much happened all of a sudden at once as they were buying a house, and so Harm and I moved here to New York to help them. And so, I'm not working right now. Well, I am working, but like what I'm doing for work is tutoring. So I tutor people in their college neuroscience and psychology and biology courses, right? I also tutor high school students on occasion, but there's fewer of them. Anyway, one of my students has several learning disabilities, and it was so cool to see that her university is like doing everything they can for her. They give her double time for her exams. They have a person that reads the questions to her and makes sure she understands them. And they also allow her to have a visual cue card to remember terms because it's really difficult for her to remember complicated terms. And she shared that with me. I asked her if I could share this with other people. She said it was fine. Um, but I thought it was really impressive. She had like, I wish I had a way to pull it up for y'all, but she had like this cue card full of emojis that she was using, and it was just fantastic. It was such a smart utilization of the tools she does have to try to overcome the barriers that she has. I love that. Education is really just sometimes not the best because they expect you to learn too much too quickly. They're telling you, hey, you need to drink this water, but you need to drink it from a fire hose. And you don't have a lot of time to drink the entire thing, right? And it's like, how do you learn anything that way? You don't actually. And then you don't sleep. So how do you learn anything if you're not sleeping? Um, but to give people accommodations, let people learn on their own terms and in their own time, I think is much more valuable. It's just that everything's so focused on money that nothing is really of value anymore. It's like, oh man, it's just for the piece of paper. Great, you have a piece of paper, but what the heck does that mean? I used to think really highly of my master's degree. I was really proud of it. I still am proud of it. It's an achievement, right? It was tough. It was tough. Going from somebody who dropped out of high school to somebody who became a straight A student, got a master's, and went on to work at Yale. I'm proud of that accomplishment, you know. But my piece of paper that says I have a master's doesn't mean as much to me today as it did when I got it. Now, my love of the brain and learning and educating other people, that's what matters to me. That's the thing that's real. The master's is more of a trophy to say, man, look at all the crap I got through and survived it. That's basically what it is. I loved physics, but I could never remember any formulas. B, got a B. Okay. That's okay. B's are great. You know what? B's are great. That's a good grade. B's not bad. Um, I guess in physics, maybe they feel a little differently. Uh, uh, and who needs to remember formulas? You don't really need to remember formulas. You just need to remember how to operate a formula, and you need to remember what the name of the formula is so you can look it up and know when to need it. Right? As long as you know those things, you're good. Have you heard of Lens to treat long COVID? I heard about it recently. It sounds cool. Hi, Mom. No, I have not heard about it. Can you tell me more about it? And I'll look into it. Maybe I can do a video about it. To treat long COVID. Sounds really useful. Kim has. Can you explain the neurology behind executive dysfunction? Let me think for a sec. So, executive dysfunction. Okay, so let's talk a bit about executive dysfunction. Let me take a drink first, because this is kind of a big topic. I see you, low energy neurofeedback system. For those who don't know, that's my mom in the comments. I helped a lot of people with brain fog and etc. Okay, awesome. Sometimes executive dysfunction is a vitamin B deficiency of some sort. That's true. That does happen. Thanks, mom, for the recommendation for lens. I will look into that, and I am going to do a video on it. Thank you. For executive dysfunction. So, in order to talk about executive dysfunction, we have to talk about executive functioning, right? Because it's like, what is it? What's the thing becoming dysfunctional? So when we talk about the areas of the brain, we've got our brain, right? Here's our brain. It's beautiful, big, beautiful brain. We love it. So the brain has different lobes, and those lobes are associated with different functions. And so you have a part of your brain in the back. It's called your occipital lobe. That's where your primary visual cortex is. You have the parts on the sides, these little lumps that are kind of at the bottom, right? And those are for your auditory processing. That's where your primary auditory cortex is, your temporal lobes, because they're by your temples, right? And on the top of your brain, you have your parietal lobe. It's important for your processing of like the physical sense of your body, as well as your motor processing. You have these big lumps that are green in the back called your cerebellum. Those are for like really fine movement, such as moving your lips when you speak. And you have your brainstem. Your brainstem has all sorts of things it does, including like beating your heart, telling you how to breathe, remembering that you're thirsty or hungry, things like that, sleep and wake cycle, things like that. Then you have the inner brain, your middle brain, parts of that like the hippocampus, the thalamus, that do different functions. The hippocampus, helps you remember. The thalamus relays your sensory information to different parts of the cortices so that you can remember it. Blah, 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 blah. Great. We have all these things to build a human. But what is like the thing that makes a human human, right? What is it that gives us personality? That's your frontal lobe, right? So you have all these things. You have all these tools. Think of it this way. You have all these tools. It starts with what we call the lizard brain. Lizard brain. That's your brainstem, right? We need this for basic life survival, just to function. And on top of that, we have evolved a mechanism for memory, right? Memory is great. We love memory. Memory helps us do a lot of things. And on top of that, we built a system of reward. Now I can remember things that are rewarding, and I can move towards those rewarding things, right? But then what else do we do, right? Now we interpret the things that we're perceiving through our eyes, through our ears, through our nose, through our lips, and we're making sense of the world around us. But sometimes you need to inhibit those things, right? Sometimes you need to stop something from functioning. For instance, I may have a reward circuitry that when I'm hungry tells me to reach for food. But if I was at dinner with my family and I became hungry and I reached for food, but the only plate is on my mom's plate, then it would be pretty rude for me to just take that food off my mom's plate and start eating. I should at least ask first, right? And so the part of my brain that tells me to ask first, that's my frontal lobe. That's the one that says, and it takes a minute to warm up too. That's important to remember, right? It takes a minute for your frontal lobe to warm up. But that's the part that says, oh, hold on, stop. Wait a second. Think about what you're about to do. And then plan a way to execute it correctly. Don't just go reaching for people's food and eating it. Ask first. And if they say no, don't do it. Do you know that food's coming to you? Wait a minute, right? You be patient. You know it's coming to you. So you have all these different inhibitory processes that come and undo all the processes of the rest of your brain to get it to slow down and really think and plan and contemplate, right? That's your executive functioning. So when we talk about executive dysfunction, it can occur for all sorts of reasons. There are people who have executive dysfunction because they have neurological disorders. Some of them are neurodevelopmental. Some people are born with these disorders. Some people develop them later in time. Some people get head injuries, right? A traumatic brain injury to the frontal lobe will cause executive dysfunction. What does that look like? Well, it looks like problems with impulse control, problems with memory, right? Um, and really, executive dysfunction is sort of an umbrella term for anything that stops you from being able to process information, right? So when we talk about things like dyslexia, well, if I'm so severely dyslexic that I really can't read, and reading is vital to my survival, that's going to become a huge problem. Lala says, sorry if it's Layla, I don't know. Layla, please correct me on the pronunciation. Task initiation, switching gears. Yeah, executive dysfunction. You have a huge problem with switching gears, right? So here's something else, right? A lot of people claim to be good at multitasking, but in reality, what we know about the brain is that nobody can multitask, right? Instead, you're just moving from one task to the other. And that takes a lot of energy to move from one task to the other and then back and then back and then back and then back. But some people are really good at it. People who have very good executive functioning are really good at it. But people with executive dysfunction have a lot of trouble switching gears. This can be caused by autism, right? Autism is an example where a person switching between tasks actually expends too much energy that way. And it can become like a discomforting, it can be very problematic. And we also see this with the one thing that we've all been talking about lately, right? MECFS. Your brain gets tired. This creates a lot of executive dysfunction. So we've seen there's Lauren. Okay. I like that you said Lala is correct. I'm assuming it's Lala. uh, your daughter's name is Layla. That's cute. I love that. I love that your names are so similar. That's adorable. I have ADHD and would describe it as a disability. You know, you describing your ADHD as a disability is perfectly reasonable because it is. ADHD is a learning disability. It actually is, though. People might kind of like slough that off and not really think about it, but that's serious. ADHD is a serious learning disability, and people with ADHD need to have accommodations for it. It doesn't mean that your brain is bad or that you're broken or that your brain doesn't work good or that you're less than anybody. It doesn't mean any of those things. It just means that you fundamentally learn differently than the typical developed person, right? That's all that means. It means that your reward circuitry does not work the same way. And in some cases, for some people, it means that your dopaminergic pathways will not produce as much dopamine as they should be, and you won't find things as rewarding as someone else might find them. Which means that if you're sitting there and you're bored and you're being forced to engage with material that you don't necessarily want to engage with, it's going to be really hard for you to get a sense of reward from that, and it's going to be really hard for you to continue to pay attention to it, right? And that's just natural. That's natural functioning for someone who has an ADHD brain, right? Um, Share nicknames. That's awesome. Classified as a developmental disability. It very well could be, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, because ADHD is neurodevelopmental. Yeah. We know that there's a heavy genetic component for it. Thanks for the affirmation. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'll affirm anybody with their people need accommodations. I don't understand why we're not accommodating more people, you know. And I don't understand why people say, you know, I have ADHD and other people go, who doesn't? You know, like whatever, you know, not my problem or whatever, like our society kind of tends to do. I find that pretty despicable, honestly. But yeah, yeah. So so executive dysfunction can be caused by any number of things. Um, but usually it's something neurodevelopmental or could be traumatic. It could be physically traumatic, such as like a TBI, a traumatic brain injury. It could also be like emotionally traumatic. Sometimes people go through, because when we go through emotionally traumatic events, our brain does become damaged by those things. It processes these events very similarly, although not the same, right? It's not exactly the same as ablating neural circuitry. Until I was 25, I hadn't experienced fulfillment and gratification. Wow, Lala, that's a really long time for you to have to wait. And yet some people probably go their whole lives. It's hard to think about. I'm really sorry to hear that. But what was it that gave you that gratification? Did you get like medication, or was it like an impactful event? What happened? If you're willing to share. And again, like, do not share your medical information with us if you don't want to, right? Like, don't feel obliged or obligated to do that. But we do like hearing about other people's experiences. You never know who it'll help, you know? Um, yeah. That being said, about executive dysfunction, right? There are things that you can do to improve executive functioning. You can you can increase dopamine, right, by strengthening reward synapses. You can also introduce drugs that increase dopamine, like L-Dopa and things like that, like they do for people with Parkinson's, which isn't necessarily an executive dysfunction, but it's not completely unrelated. Uh, so you have like medicinal interventions you can use. Um, there's also accommodations that you can use, right? Like storytelling. I did a video, I haven't released it yet, but it's about how people don't really remember what you tell them. They remember how you told them. And it's because we're very geared for learning from stories, right? And so it's like, if you have ADHD and you already have a problem with feeling a sense of reward, how am I going to expect you to read a really dry research article and retain any of that? It would be much better for me to provide a story for you that could entertain you and get you to really understand the depth and the importance of the information that's conveyed by the article, right? That would be easier for you to pick up. That is an accommodation. Very fleeting experiences, but finally taking ADHD meds regularly enough helped to allow me to begin truly finding myself. Lala, I'm so glad. I'm sorry that it took you so long. I'm sorry that it took so long for you to get what you need. That I'm just sorry that it took so long. But I am grateful that you did eventually get what you needed. And I hope that it is like you're finding yourself. I hope that you're there. And if you're not, then I hope you keep growing and I hope you keep getting what you need. Yeah. Big hugs to Lala from YouTube. Just letting you know, Lala, you got fans over on YouTube, and they're rooting for you. Pete says a lifetime as a neurodivergent. It's a challenge I'm familiar with. Thank you for clarifying the why of certain things. ACA speaks to those with ADHD. What is ACA? Sorry if I. Executive dysfunction is compounded by TBI. Yeah, it absolutely is. Executive functions, TBIs cause executive dysfunction, and executive dysfunction that is already there will be made worse by TBIs. Almost always. Whether it's a problem with your sensory processing or it's a problem with your frontal lobe, right? Like we were discussing earlier with your inhibitory processes. Lala says, "Thanks, friends." Yeah. Hey, Lala, thanks so much for your comments and thanks for being part of our community here. You know, I don't know it looks like we have a few new people here that have just joined. For those who don't know, on TikTok, we have almost 350,000 people following this channel. And over on YouTube, we just gained another 1,000 in the last week, which is amazing because we're now at 2,000. And over at TikTok, we are almost monetized. So for those who don't know, we have a big community here. We talk about the brain, we learn about ourselves, we share our experiences, and we care about each other. You know, that's our community. Yeah, come follow me on YouTube. Thank you so much for the support, Lala. Yeah, we care about each other. You know, we look out for each other, we share our experiences, and we try to help each other the best that we can. My job is just to kind of moderate the community and share whatever I have. I'm a neuroscientist. I worked in the field for 10 years doing research with spinal cord injury and also like circuitry behind olfactory processing, things like that. I also managed a lab that did stem cell research for neuropsychiatric disorders. Um, and, I have my name on 7 peer reviewed publications as well. Um, that being said, I used to teach at the University of Oregon. I taught biopsychology and I taught top research methods in cognitive psychology. I also taught statistics and a few other courses as well. So those are the things I talk about. I talk about neuroscience, I talk about biology, and I talk about psychology. Those are the fields that I enjoy the most. They're the fields that I know the most about. And I'm all about free education. I think education should be free. And I'm going to teach you for free over on YouTube and also here on TikTok. My TikTok videos are obviously short form, will cover really interesting things. Over on YouTube, I would like to eventually give full hour length lectures where you can learn neuroanatomy, you can learn the history of neuroscience, you can learn everything about that I know about neuroscience from the beginning to the end. So interesting. Yes. Thanks, Lala. I had accommodations for ADHD once, ACA. Okay. Thanks, Pete. Yeah. Pete, would you be willing to share any of the accommodations that you were given? It's okay if you're not, and don't feel pressured to at all. But I am curious to know. Yeah. Okay. Here's something I want to talk about. So I've been live for 2 hours. Well, actually, it's probably been about 2.5 hours. I did have to like hop off YouTube for a minute because my microphone was acting up. But I I am probably going to have to end this live at some point soon because my phone is getting low on battery. Before I do, I'm still open to talking about if anybody has any questions, they want to talk about anything. But also, if you have something that you'd like me to make a video about, please. And I have lots of suggestions here. I have plenty of material. But if you have something you're like, man, I really want to know more about this, let me know right now. I'll write it down. And when I get the time, I will make a video about it. And if I can't make a short video about it, then I will save it for later. And when I am set up to do long form videos, I'll make sure that I get it. I'll get to it then. Eye brain connection, everything about it. Okay, sure. That's definitely going to have to be a long form video because I'll tell you the sensory systems are bananas. Um, Very quickly, I can tell you a little bit about it. So, something that's fun is we take in information 2 a.m. where I am. I hope you rest well when you get there. Thank you for answering my question. Much appreciated. Kim has, it's 2 a.m. Go to bed. I thank you so much for being part of our community. I really appreciate you. Thanks for your comments. Thanks for sharing your experience. And I hope to see you again in the future. Until then, I hope you get really good rest. And I hope to see you around in the comments. Have a good night. Um, so, really quickly, I told you that the primary visual cortex is in the occipital lobe, right? That's in the back of the brain. So the information of your eyes, it's kind of hard to see on this model, but you have something called an optic chiasm. That's that little X thing in the middle. Can you see that? My pinky's kind of pointing toward it. So this is where information goes from one eye to the same hemisphere, but also crosses over to the other hemisphere. And the other eye does the same thing. It goes to its ipsilateral, that's the same side, ipsilateral hemisphere, and also crosses over to the contralateral, opposite side, contralateral hemisphere, right? Misho, what's up? Anyway, so the first stop is the primary visual cortex in the back of the brain, right? That's the occipital lobe. And then you have, so all this does is process information about edge detection. Hey, thanks for the gifts. You're awesome too. So yeah, the first thing it does is processes information about edge detection. That's the first information that you get. Everyone say hi to Misho. Welcome from the Netherlands. That's the first information you get from your eyes. It's just what edges have I detected, right? From there, there's information that goes to the what pathway, which means it heads to the top of your brain where your parietal lobe is. And then there's the where pathway, which actually heads down the side of your brain to the temporal lobe, right? So we say what pathway and where pathway. This is how the visual cortex is connected to the temporal lobe and the parietal lobe. So remember, your parietal lobe is everything about your sense of proprioception. It's where are you at in your environment and where are you at in relation to yourself, more importantly. So you have a where pathway that goes up towards your parietal lobe, and it says, the thing I'm looking at, where is that in relation to myself? And it might also say a few other things like, how do I interact with it, right? And then you have the where pathway that goes down your temporal lobe, and this tells you aspects of things like color. What color is it? What does it look like, right? That's all really cool stuff. Something that's really cool is when you see, maybe I should talk about this in a video. When we see, the reason we know these pathways exist is because of lesion studies due to people who have had damage in these brain areas, right? So we know that people who have damage in the MT, which is like up in the where pathway, have trouble with processing visual information. There was such a woman who received damage to her brain in that region, and she lost the ability to detect motion. So although she could see like visually with 20/20 vision, she could see perfectly, she couldn't interpret motion. She just couldn't interpret it, right? And it's really hard to picture what that might mean or look like. But the way she described it was that life looked like a series of snapshots to her. So it made things like crossing the street almost impossible. She had to like close her eyes and hold somebody's hand and have them cross the street with her, and she just had to trust them. Because if she tried to cross the street on her own and cars were coming, they would just look like they were jumping towards her. She couldn't process the in-between, right? It was like looking at a series of slides. So this was damage to her MT, which is up in the where pathway up in the parietal lobe. That's like the next stop from your vision. We noticed that people who have damage to that's the where pathway. We notice people who have damage to the what pathway in the temporal lobe, they have issues with perception of color, right? They, even though they can see color and they can tell that something is a color, they might get their colors confused. And it's not quite the same as being colorblind. So like that's another interesting thing that we've seen. Never had reasonable accommodations, but learned everything about it. Oh, sorry, I missed something. I completed a form with my psychiatrist, but never actually submitted it. As a supervisor, I learned to roam around the hospital and do charting on CK. Never had reasonable accommodations, but I learned everything about it. I wouldn't work in a crowded, noisy office, so I stayed on the move. Pete, it sounds like you did a fair amount of managing your own accommodations, sort of like finding your own accommodations where you could. I'm sorry that you've had to do that. That's unfortunately very common, right? That's why people like also self-medicate and do things like that because, unfortunately, society isn't always the best at helping us in ways that we need. And so we end up having to find ways to help ourselves. I'm sorry that that's been your experience. Did you already talk about cases where people cannot recognize faces? No, I haven't. I can do that now if you like. How is brown not an actual color? Brown is a color, kind of. I mean, it's all wavelengths, right? But if you're thinking in terms of what the eyes can perceive, it's definitely like a muddy wavelength. Um, because you're looking at clashing wavelengths, and the eyes can only perceive. Well, it depends. It depends on what processing theory you ascribe to, because there are two processing theories that we use to describe color vision in the visual system, and they both work a lot of the time, and both of them also kind of don't work on their own, so we need each other. um yeah, but your first question about the faces. What do you want to know? So there's people who cannot recognize faces. Oftentimes, it's people with damage to the fusiform facial area, which, if I remember correctly, is in the right hemisphere, and it's like just under the cerebellum, or it's like kind of where my pinky is. It's roughly in that region. But what the fusiform facial area is a spot in your brain that can, when you look at someone's facial features, it knows how to put them together correctly to make a person's face. And if that part of your brain is not working correctly, it can make it really hard. Evening, new here. Hi, Miss Sunset. Welcome. Welcome, and welcome to the community, and thanks for being here. We're just talking about the brain. We also share our experiences. Yeah, be here, have fun. Um, so people who have damage to the fusiform facial area, they usually have a lot of trouble telling whose face is whose. And the way they know who they're talking to is by picking out certain features of the face and really analyzing them. For instance, if you have like a mole or a tattoo, or they'll listen to your voice and they can put those cues together to determine who you are. Otherwise, they can't really tell. We also know that some people neurodevelopmentally have trouble in this area. They have underactive fusiform facial areas. People who have autism have underactive fusiform facial areas. And because of that, they often have trouble telling people apart. They often think that two people might be the same person, right? Or get confused. Or they might meet somebody and then forget that they've met them because they don't recognize their face later. I'd like to understand if it has to do with pattern recognition or the memory of faces. It's actually weirdly like a little bit related to the memory of faces, and I guess a little bit related to pattern recognition, right? Like, here's where this piece of the face goes. But like, honestly, it's kind of its own separate thing. Yeah. It's really interesting. Yeah. Yeah. And we know what happens. So, like, we've seen people who have damage to this area too, right? People who undergo stroke. There's a really famous case of a man, I think he had a stroke or something that damaged this area. And he's the title of this book, which is by Oliver Sacks, who is a very famous and prolific neuroscientist and writer, right? A neuropsychiatrist, I guess, and writer, who wrote the book, The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat. And it's The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat and other short clinical tales, right? But that title is based on a man who had damage to his fusiform facial area. If you've not read that book, I highly recommend it. It's very interesting. That is me. I introduced myself a few times. Don't know how I made it this far in life. I'm sorry to hear that, Fluffy. Yeah, and I mean, I have that issue too, where I don't remember people's faces unless I've interacted with them a lot. That actually makes it really difficult. But like, for things like social media, I don't really get to see your guys' faces at all. But I know your names, and I see like your profile pictures, which are a lot easier for me to distinguish, honestly. And so that actually helps me a lot to remember who I'm talking to. But I am a little sad because the conversation does feel a little bit one-sided, and I'd rather not be staring at my own face, which I am chronically, unfortunately. I wish I was better looking, but unfortunately I have the face that I have. And I'd rather be looking at your guys' faces. I want to know who I'm talking to. And I do try to like do a little snooping sometimes. Sometimes I'll go into your guys' profiles, I'll follow you and watch your videos if you have them. A lot of my followers don't have any videos. They're just on here watching me, and that's cool. But I do, I'll like your videos too if I see them. I enjoy people. I love people, and that's why I do what I do. A reading list of my favorites would be amazing. Okay, Lala. Yeah. I have lots of books that I love. Let me think for a second. I'll rattle off a few, and then I used to do videos of, hey, here's what I'm reading right now, or hey, here's but I'll tell you one of my favorite books if you haven't read it is that's actually your face, Hannah. It's adorable. For those who don't know, Hannah's face is of a looks like a corgi, maybe. Is it a corgi? It's a very cute dog. Um, oh, Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. I actually really love that book a lot. It's not a neuroscience book, it is just for fun. If you've not read it, it starts off as a horror story and becomes a thriller, but like an exciting thriller, not like a scary thriller. It's an amazing book. It has everything. It's such a good book. Nothing to do with the brain, though. If you're looking for brain books, what do I got? I've got Neurogastronomy, which was recommended to me and recommended to me by my. Why am I blanking? Sorry, give me a sec. I've been talking too long. I need to take a drink of water. Give me 1 second. Okay. So this book was recommended to me by my PI for the lab that I worked at the University of Oregon. It's called Neurogastronomy. I'll grab it. It's right here. Get your backpack. Okay. Great book. Bam. Neurogastronomy. It's a lot of fun. I know that it's backwards for you on TikTok. I'm sorry. But it has to do with the molecular structure of like taste and flavor. So for those that don't know, your perception of flavor actually doesn't come from your mouth. It comes from your nose. And that's why when you get sick, you can't really taste your food, is because your nose is stuffed up. So we humans perform what's called retrograde olfaction, which means that we eat our food, and then as we're chewing it, we masticate. That odor comes up through our sinuses and we smell it backwards. And that backwards smelling that we're doing is for our perception of flavor. So it's pretty interesting. Different chemicals do different things in the nervous system. And odorants are the smallest molecule that elicits an odor response, right? So I'll give you an example of one fun fact that I like to share from this book. I believe it's called buprenorphine, or it might be, I think that's right. But there's an odorant that's responsible both for the smell of body odor and for the perception of the flavor of butter. And so, depending on different contexts, if you smell it next to like a really sweaty guy, you'll say, wow, that guy smells horrible and he really needs to shower. But if I provide that odorant to you while you're looking, truffle cheese, smell and taste at the same time. That's correct, Miss Sunset. If I give you this odorant alongside like a tasty steak dinner, you'll smell it and go, man, that smells really savory. That smells delicious. It's the same molecule, but under different contexts, you read it completely differently. And that also depends a lot on like the concentration that you receive in odorant. A lot of odorants are very pleasant at low concentrations and disgusting at high concentrations. It's a very good book if you're ever interested in that sort of thing. Be visible on MRI or some other images. Sorry, Fluffy. Went talking for so long, I forgot what we were talking about. What's visible on MRI or other images? The fusiform facial area. If that's what you're talking about, yes, that is visible. Usually because you can, yeah, in fMRI, you can study the activity being done there, but also if there's like a stroke and somebody has an issue, you can see that with brain imaging as well. Misho has a face for radio. Same, buddy. I don't think that's true, though. I think you probably are lying a little bit. I need a trusted source for new titles. What do you like to read about? Because I read about all sorts of things. So tell me what you want to read about, and then I'll give you some recommendations. I remember your face by eyebrow, nose, and upper lip. If your hat is off, I might not recognize you. I see. Yeah. My beanie is pretty iconic. I've had it the same exact beanie, and I've changed it out a few times, but this is the original beanie that I had when I blew up on TikTok years ago. Have ME and multiple extra unsuperpowers. Nice to meet you guys. Miss Sunset, thanks for being part of our community. I'm sorry to hear about your struggles with chronic fatigue syndrome. You're definitely not alone, especially in this crowd. And you know, we're not going to gaslight you and say it's all in your head, uh, although it is kind of in your head. But it's a real biological process happening in your head, and not just you know. Do we have some sort of computer simulation that shows how vision is put together in the brain, the individual visual process you described? I don't know about a computer simulation. I'm basing my knowledge off of my colleagues' work at the University of Oregon. Right down the hallway from my lab, we had a really heavily profound visual processing lab. You might want to look into it. Let me actually just do something really quick on my computer. Okay. So I'm going to tell you a professor's name. His name is Chris Neal, University of Oregon. I think he's part of the psych faculty. I thought he was biology for a second, but now I think he's psych. Anyway, his lab has done some pretty prolific research around the visual system. And they actually did a lot to show us that the visual system, oh man, all these faces. I miss all these people. Okay, I can't find Chris. But anyway, Chris Neal, his lab, a lot of my colleagues showed that there's topographic mapping in the visual spatial realm. So I talked about the visual cortex, right? Bam, in the back to receive that information, it's topographically mapped. What that means is that where things exist in your visual field perfectly correlates to where they exist on your cortex. So when looking at mice, which is what he did, he looked at mice whose brain tissue would fluoresce as it became active, right? And he showed them a bar of light passing in front of their face at different angles and from different directions and at different speeds, right? And as he did that, he watched their visual cortex light up, and you could see the bar moving across their visual cortex, which is absolutely bananas. It was a pretty profound finding at the time, and still is. That's amazing, right? Anything could be neuroscience or completely unrelated. Okay, if that's the case, if you haven't read Robert Sapolsky, I highly recommend Robert Sapolsky's books. This is a really good one. It's why zebras don't get ulcers, right? Is that we produce a lot of cortisol and it stays stuck in our systems because we have a lot of stressors, but we sit at our desk and be stressed about them as opposed to getting up and running it off, right? Which is what you would more see in the wild. Say if you had a stressor you were being hunted, you'd probably get up and run away. And that would help you work your stress chemicals out. But the way humans live in the modern days, this really has some profound effects on our nervous system and the rest of our body. He talks a lot about gut health and things like that. It's a really good book. There's another one that he wrote more recently that I've been reading called Behave. Very good book. I highly recommend it. It starts off hilarious. He does share a story about his wife. I'm going to try to remember it correctly because it's been a minute since I read it. What was it? It was, I'm gonna mess it up. Please go read it for yourself. But essentially, he was talking about his wife's behavior. They were driving, they were in traffic, somebody cut them off. His wife sped after them, was like honking or whatever, was really mad, upset. The guy finally pulls over and she goes, "Ooh, I've been waiting for this." And she gets out of the car, grabs something. He didn't see what it was. And she, runs up to his window and throws it in his window and comes back laughing. And it was like, I forget what she threw in his window. It was like a piece of candy or something. I don't know. And she said, "Since you're going to be a big baby about it, right?" And it's like, why do people respond this way? Why do we feel like we have to do something? Um, anyway, his book is very entertaining. It's very entertaining. He also talks about why people do horrible things, like why did the Holocaust happen? Things like that. Like, what is the neuroscience behind that kind of behavior and how people can go in line with that sort of thing? It's a very entertaining book. I highly recommend it. He's really good. There's another really good book called Raising Cain. It's kind of older. It's a much older book, but it's good. It may be less relevant now, but when I was a kid growing up, assigned male at birth, right, and presenting as a boy, right, um, that meant that I'm not allowed to cry. I'm not allowed to show my feelings. My only acceptable emotions are happy, but not too happy, and angry. And that's it. Other than that, I need to be stone faced, right? And that book covers the emotional and psychological damage that's done to boys by not teaching them how to develop their emotional processing and how they grow up to be middle aged men that are super lonely and die at high rates. They die early of heart disease and things like that. That's a pretty good book on that subject. And these are cases where the men who wrote this book, there are two of them that are scientists who followed boys and men longitudinally, like as they grew older. That's a really good book for sure. Mainly in your legs, but in your head too. I'm sorry. Looks like a cigar. Yeah. Yeah. She. Neil Lab, neural circuits for vision in the natural world. Probably. That's probably him. Sapolsky is the GOAT for sure. You could make a slightly longer form video, maybe for YouTube, where you share some of your favorite books. I did do a banned reading book list, and somebody commented because they went to go look at those books. Now, those videos are old. They're a couple of years old. But somebody recently commented, "Hey, your first one got banned. Your first your first video about banned books got banned on YouTube." I hope that's not true. I've looked and it seems like it's okay. Please let me know if it's not. Meant to read it ages ago. Yeah, please do it. Majored in gender studies with anthropology. Was which one do you have? Is that Raising Cain? The Center Cannot Hold by Ellen Sachs is a fantastic book. Let me see if I can find it. No, I can't. It's somewhere though. It's definitely there somewhere. Listen, Ellen Sachs is an amazing professor at two universities. She's a professor of psychology at one university and a professor of law at the other. She wrote a book called The Center Cannot Hold. Sachs is spelled Saks. No relation to Oliver Sacks. Ellen Sachs is amazing. She's amazing. She's done a lot of really important roundtable discussions circling how we treat homelessness and mental illness, and how people who are severely mentally ill and are in the United States are doomed for a cycle of going into prison and back on the street and then into the hospital for maybe a day or two and then back on the street to where they'll end up in prison until they're dead. They're just bound for this cycle until they die. Now, the thing about Ellen is that she has schizophrenia. She has pretty severe schizophrenia from when she was, in college. She developed it in college. That's typically when schizophrenia shows up, is in your late teens, right? Around 1920. 1920, 21. Those are like the danger years to develop schizophrenia. Anyway, she did. And she would like go on meds once she was forced to be on meds. And then she would get better. And then she would think, "Oh, I'm all better." Stop taking her meds. And then she would get so much worse. And it led to so many issues. Anyway, she did her doctoral dissertation on when somebody should and should not be allowed or in charge of their own medicine, right? Distribution, when they should be given it. Her work, that book, is just fantastic because she shares not only how she arrives at her conclusions, but she shares her actual personal experience having schizophrenia. It's a very important book. I like it a lot. What do you do now to optimize your brain performance? I'm constantly doing new things. That's what I do to optimize my brain performance. The three main things that you can do, the three best things that you can do, in my opinion: eat well, which means that you get a lot of different nutrients, not so much sugar. You can eat sugar. Sugar's okay for your brain. A lot of people are like, don't eat sugar, it'll hurt you. Sugar will hurt you if you eat too much of it, and it becomes neuroinflammatory if your body cannot process it. But if you are exercising enough to get through the sugar, it won't hurt you as much. But it is easy to accumulate sugar. And we are seeing with ketogenic diets where you're replacing your sugars with fats as an energy source, that there does seem to be an improved cognition. A little bit, yeah. That being said, you don't have to avoid sugar all the way. Definitely eating natural sugars like from bananas or fruits and those things, that's or like carrots and things, is obviously a lot better for you, right? Yeah, you want to make sure you're getting enough omega-3s. A really good way to do that is by eating fish. You want to eat fish, and you want to eat olive oil, right? On occasion. You should eat fish maybe like twice a week if you can. Fish gets expensive. I eat sardines. It's pretty cheap. But I have 2 servings a week, Not everybody likes sardines. Mackerel's pretty good. If you don't eat fish, take a vitamin D supplement daily. I take a vitamin D supplement daily. Another thing is, if you need any supplements, just know that your body does not absorb supplements very well most times. And so the way to absorb a supplement is by eating a food that contains that supplement in it prior to taking the supplement. And then you take them together, and the food will prime your body to absorb the supplement, and then you will absorb the supplement better. Making sure your iron levels are correct. You don't want too much or too little iron. Too much iron will bog you down really bad. That happens to me because I accumulate iron in my bloodstream. Fun fact, bloodletting is pretty much the only thing you can do to fix that. And it turns out bloodletting is still useful. Not getting enough iron means that you're not getting enough oxygen. So that's also an issue, right? Sorry, let me take a second. Eating right is super important. The second thing is exercising and not being sessile, right? Not being stuck in one place to the best of your ability. Sitting down is highly correlated with early onset dementia symptoms. So the longer you're sitting in a day, the more likely you're going to have those issues earlier in life. Now, the longer you live, eventually you're going to get dementia, right? If you live long enough, you will get dementia. There's no way to avoid that, at least not yet. But there is a way to postpone that dementia, and that is by living an active lifestyle. Having increased blood flow to the brain is always good for it. Having kinks in your body by sitting is kind of bad for it because you have heavy elements accumulating throughout your bloodstream at your joints where your blood vessels bend, right? They get stuck in those corners. They're not necessarily corners, but that is where the pressure pushes up against. And so the heavier elements will get stuck and they start to form a plaque. And you have like cardiovascular disease, right? So definitely raising cane for sure. Yeah. Increasing blood flow. Let's see. And then learning something new rigorously. And I'm not talking about, like, oh, I crochet. And so I tried a different pattern, right? It's like if you've been crocheting all your life and then you try a different pattern, sure, that's technically new. That's not a bad thing to do. You should do that once in a while. But it's so much better for you to be like, you know what? I'm going to try anything. Like if I crochet all my life, maybe I should try to be a blacksmith. Let me see if I can build a sword, from scratch. Or let me see if I can pick up sculpting or ceramics, right? Or let me see if I can take up archery or something else. Something so completely different that it really forces your brain to form new neural pathways. And then there's other things you can do too. One supplement we know of that helps stave off dementia, I forgot to mention, is lion's mane mushroom. I see I have a bunch of new messages. I should be reading them, but I'm just talking. It's a piece of like Chinese Eastern medicine that's been used for many, 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 many years. But more recently, research has shown that there is some evidence to suggest that it helps with neurogenesis and the prevention of neurodegenesis or like degeneration. And why people get scared during the experience. Sure. G Medley Jr. Thanks for the question. Sorry if it took too long for me to get to you. I'm not even sure if you're still here. I do talk about sleep paralysis quite often. So sleep paralysis happens because you get paralyzed, right? You get paralyzed on your way to sleep. It's important that that happens. If it doesn't, you will become a sleepwalker, right? So for the typical person, some chemicals kind of enter their way into your system to knock you out and make you unable to move. This is not initially alarming when you're first falling asleep. You just become very comfortable. But if you wake up and you're still paralyzed, that can be a really uncomfortable experience. It's very scary. I know I've been through it a bunch. Another really creepy thing that can happen is that if you know anything about sleep cycles, you typically fall into deep sleep really fast, come into light sleep, and then gradually make your way into REM sleep, rapid eye movement. That's when you're dreaming. And then you'll fall back into deep and you'll come back up and you'll fall back down. You do this about 3 cycles per night. On occasion, you'll wake up again, but not for very long. This really weird phenomenon will happen where you wake up while you're still in REM. So you're consciously awake, but your brain is still in REM sleep. And so you hallucinate. And this can create terrifying visuals, commonly referred to as the original nightmare, right? The thing sitting on your chest like a demon. Sometimes people get this feeling. It does feel like a lot of pressure on your chest because you feel like you can't breathe. And it's because you don't have control of your breathing yet because you're still paralyzed. And so your lizard brain, your brain stem is breathing for you. You can't do it consciously. This is a terrifying experience, right? Because it's very abnormal. It doesn't feel right. Yeah, I don't know what else to say about that other than it's very scary, and it can manifest in profoundly different ways for different people. Avocados are definitely really good for you. Sardines daily, 3 times per day. That's too many sardines. You should slow it down. Sardines are a great fish because they're too small to accumulate large amounts of mercury. But at that rate, you're getting mercury. Just don't be scared. Supplement absorption. Yeah, for sure. I think canned tuna is very healthy in terms of omega-3, but tuna is one of those really big fish that does absorb a lot of mercury. So you got to be careful with that. Yeah, Miss Sunset, did you experience an evil presence? So yeah, okay, like just to further elaborate on that, you wake up consciously, but your body is not awake and your brain is still experiencing REM sleep. So you are dreaming, but your eyes are open and you're in your awake world, still dreaming. And so people will hallucinate. Since you cannot breathe on your own, you have no control of your breath because your brainstem is breathing for you because you're paralyzed. That is a terrifying experience. For one, that you don't have control of your body is terrifying. But for two, your brain, because it's dreaming, tries to make up a scenario that makes sense because your brain misses a ton of things throughout the day. I don't know if you know this. This is kind of the video that got me famous, but your brain is in a simulation. Your brain provides a simulation for you of everything you've ever experienced, right? Your brain doesn't like missing information. It will fill that information in. That is what it does. Oh, sorry, I missed something. I missed a few things. Sorry about that. Movement is medicine. Sitting is a killer. For sure, Pete. If waking with sleep paralysis, the advice I've heard is to try wiggling your toes and the rest of your body will start to follow suit. Harmony says that's good advice, Hannah. Hannah, that's great advice. That's actually right there, solid. What Hannah said. Start with your toes. What happens is when you're wiggling your toes, so that first act is what tells your brain to start producing the chemicals to wake you back up, right? And that's really all sleep paralysis is that those chemicals haven't made their way through your bloodstream yet. And the way to do that is by trying to wiggle. And when you try to wiggle, you will kick those chemicals into your bloodstream. They'll circulate through your body, and as they do, your body will start to wake up. But in the meantime, your brain doesn't like missing information. It's trying to say to itself, why am I sitting here unable to move? 1 second, resist oppression. I'll answer that in a minute. I do have a few more comments over here. And so the way that it fills that in is by providing visual imagery for you and sometimes auditory imagery because you're dreaming and your brain's able to play with itself. And the problem is that it's often very scary because it's trying to describe what the scary thing is happening. What is the source of the scary thing? And it creates oftentimes people see aliens or demons, right? And it usually happens when the brain is most awake. And you will see in a typical wake cycle, people wake up around this time because the brain is most awake at 3 a.m. in the typical person. Your brain is most active, not awake, active when you're sleeping at 3 a.m., which is why people often wake up at the witching hour and also why scary stuff happens at the witching hour, right? It's because this process is happening to you. How much blood they took to fix your iron? A ton. One time they took it so fast I passed out in the chair. That was scary. That was last time they took it. Luckily, my iron's been good since, and that was years ago. Hopefully it stays that way. I've heard that too much B6 is bad for the nerves. I've also heard that, but also not enough B6 can cause some serious issues too. Sorry, I'm going to try to move through the comments a little bit faster. Yeah, sorry it took me so long to answer your question. I can be pretty long-winded, but I hope that does answer your question. You've experienced it twice. Okay, yeah, I've experienced it a number of times. I'd probably say in the last year, I've experienced it maybe like 5 or 6 times. Yeah, it's not very fun, but knowing what it is definitely helps it to be less scary. Uh-oh, my phone is gonna die. Sorry, 1 second. Save the phone, people. Oh boy, I hope I can do this. Urgh. Hopefully that works. Okay, we're like on our last legs, people. One more tip for mental health: meditation. Put your mind into neutral once a day. Misho, that's great advice for people who can do it. People with ADHD have a lot harder time with meditation, but actually, meditation does help people with ADHD. It's just much harder for them to get into. And honestly, even if you don't have ADHD, it's still really hard to get into. But that's why they call it a practice. You do get better over time. It does help a lot. Cognitive behavioral therapy, but on ourselves. Yeah, exactly. Oh, Cindy, we were talking about sleep paralysis. Yeah. Oops. Sleep paralysis. That's only if he drinks alcohol in the evening. Tell him to stop drinking. It's bad for him. I don't even know why alcohol is legal. It's a terrible drug. Okay, back over here. Sorry, YouTube. I did not mean to ignore you guys. I'm not ignoring you. All right, movement is medicine. Wiggle your toes. Yep, great advice. Thank you, Hannah. Okay, so PTSD is linked to nightmares and night terrors. What's the mechanism? Yeah, so I think this is, I'm not sure. It's probably different for everybody. Thank you for the question, resist oppression. Yeah, alcohol is horrible for sure. It's probably different for everybody, but I imagine if you remember what we were talking about earlier with people who really enjoy horror movies, I think that it's your brain's sort of way of controlling the environment. I will share some of my experience now because I have complex PTSD. I have CPTSD. I do talk about it sometimes. I don't want to make this all about me. Uh, because I love hearing about your guys' experiences and validating you. But I just want to share that I also like do know what you're talking about for real. Um, so I was in a really bad car accident when I was 7, where we were driving on an interstate and a semi, it was going about 80 miles an hour. The driver fell asleep while he was driving and slammed into our car. And I was ejected from the vehicle. 7 years old, ejected from the vehicle. I landed out in the middle of the street, and I think I got run over by another car. I say I think that not because anybody witnessed it, but because what I looked like when I got to the hospital. I'm not going to talk too much about my experience there because it can trigger me sometimes. Uh, Sorry, give me a sec. That's really funny. Uh, One sec. Sorry, I gotta like go through it, I guess. Yeah, okay. So after that, I had like horrible nightmares and they wouldn't stop like for years, years and years. And like actually one of the things I talk about is how I lost my sense of memory. I had retrograde and anterograde amnesia for a while. Like I still have retrograde amnesia from it. I can't remember anything that happened before the accident. But I also had anterograde amnesia, which means going forward for about 2 or 3 years before my memory mechanisms started working to get me to remember again. It actually took a team of neurologists working with me to get me there, which is also what got me into neuroscience, right? I have like an affinity for it because of my childhood experience. Um, but I think that the reason why we have so many nightmares when we're processing um, complex or even just like regular PTSD symptoms is because like with watching horror movies, we have our brain has a way to like control the experience that we're having, the trauma that we're having, and it's trying to engage the memory, the feeling that we had, right? um it's trying to re-engage that feeling that we had in some way, and sometimes it doesn't look anything like, sometimes I had horrific nightmares about being in a car accident, but that wasn't often the case. A lot of times I do have nightmares about being in a car and it's out of control, but that's actually pretty unrelated to my trauma. Most of the time I'll have nightmares about being chased or some sort of monster, or everyone in the world is zombies and I'm the last person left and I'm trying not to let it get me. Things like that, they're really horrific situations, and I really do think it's your brain's way of trying to process that intense fear that you felt, because you really can't and I've talked about this a few times, and I even have a video about it right on that I've posted, where when you're processing through trauma, emotion is a very powerful retrieval cue. And sometimes when you're going through a traumatic experience, your emotion is so intense that it's really hard to get back to that level of intensity, which means that that memory is blocked. It's locked behind that intense emotionality, right? Um, and since you don't have access to that retrieval queue, you no longer have access to those memories. Well, you know that you're physically responding, but you don't have access to the memory. And if you don't have access to the memory, how do you rework your system? So if you can't rework your system, what do you do? Well, the brain, I think, has a mechanism for that. I think while you're sleeping, your brain provides a controlled reality for you where it can bring you to that level of emotionality to bring some of that stuff back up to you, at least in the feelings, maybe not so much in the literal memory of it. And then it can help you work through that traumatic feeling so that you can process it in your own time. I also think this may have something to do with why a person can go through something really traumatic and not feel like it's traumatic at all until they get much older now. And we don't really have a lot of control over that, right? Sorry, my brain glitched for a minute there. Miss Sunset, you also have CPTSD. I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah, it's definitely not fun. Takes a while to contain ADHD to be able to meditate. Takes time, but it is possible and it is worth it. Misho, I agree with you. It is very worth it. Alcohol can suppress the REM cycle and change patterns of sleep in general. So it makes sense that when your husband gets it, yeah, that definitely makes sense. Thanks, Harm. Yeah, water's good. I should definitely drink some water. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for letting me be weird sometimes. We all are a little bit weird because life is freaking weird, right? Resist Oppression over here says EMDR. EMDR is amazing. Yes, for sure. I haven't undergone it, but I've definitely seen the research around it, and it has promising results to the extent that I'm not even going to say it's promising results. I think there's a huge result there in what we've seen. I used to say promising results because EMDR was pretty new. It still is relatively kind of new. But yeah, that bilateral stimulation seems to do the trick. And we see that with things like with Tetris, right? Yeah, Harmony is my wife. Full Metal Harmony, if I don't know how her name appears to you. Yeah, we're on an awesome side of TikTok for sure. Anyone have a perfect non brain? Must be nice. Metronomes, yeah, metronomes definitely help. I heard that. So there's something about the there's something. So actually, I'm going to say something else about this too. So there's something about a metronome and the ticking, the regular ticking, that helps to regulate your mental process. The act of hearing it is helping because you're stimulating your auditory nerves at a regular rate, right? So you'll sync up with that. But also something that everybody used to recommend way back in the day, and still do. It's very important. You should do this if you do get stressed out related to why zebras don't get ulcers. You should go for a walk and think about those stressful feelings while you're walking. And the reason why is because you're forcing your heart rate to be regular. When you're walking, your heart rate doesn't fluctuate. When you're sitting and you're thinking about things that piss you off or freak you out, what ends up happening is your heart rate goes up and then it'll go down, and then it'll come up and then it'll go down. Your blood pressure will go up and then it'll go down. Turns out this is terrible for your system. What's really good for your system is to work through these tough emotions as your heart is like forced to beat at a regular rate. And what happens is then you get oxygen at a regular rate. And so your thoughts don't race. And so you stabilize that way. And a metronome is a great way to do that. Walking or any form of like neutral exercise is also a great way to do that. Miss ticking clocks. I like ticking clocks for sure. In your sleep? Oh no. Sorry, what's going on over here? I'm definitely the group of EMDR and psychedelic therapy with the right doctors is a pathway, in my opinion. Yeah, we've definitely seen a lot of promise with psychedelic treatments and war veterans, right? Especially like combat related depression and PTSD. We do see people like microdosing psilocybin and things like that, and going through therapy seems to be pretty beneficial for almost everybody who does it. Yeah, that research is pretty amazing. Very suggestible is the biggest problem. Yeah, for sure. Yes. Well, you own an internal clock, Miss Sunset. I think most of us do too. Do you ever set your alarm and then wake up 5 minutes before your alarm? Does that piss you off? It makes me mad. Got to do that again soon. Rewire your brain. Lala, do it. It's good for you. Maybe not mushrooms, but like going for a walk 5 minutes before. That is the worst. Oh boy. Okay. My phone is pretty much dead. This cord is like doing everything it can to just sustain life. Oversleep every alarm. Oh no. Is that the MECFS? You also meant with the mushrooms. Hey, I am not going to advocate either way, but you should do what you feel like works for you and just be careful. Wake up to your door knocking, but no one's there. Yeah, that's pretty common, right? It's pretty common for people to have auditory hallucinations when they are first waking up or first falling asleep. Sometimes visual hallucinations, but that's less common because usually your eyes are closed. But yeah, that's just your brain being really tired and starts playing with itself. I think I did a video about that recently as well. That's one of my favorite topics. So people who's there's a great book on that. Hey, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure everybody would like to hear this. Lala, I think it was asking me for book recommendations. There's another book by Oliver Sacks, and it's called Hallucinations. And he talks about that phenomenon and other phenomena that cause hallucinations to occur, as well as like migraines. He has a book aptly titled Migraine that goes over migraine hallucinations. Basically, anything Oliver Sacks ever wrote, read it. It's really good. All his books are amazing. Yeah, absolutely. Happy to do it. Yeah, don't open the door. There's nobody there anyway. Don't open it. There's nobody there. Hannah says, I really appreciate the metronome advice. Dealing with the heart rate changes currently from PTSD. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's tough too, because sometimes, man, heart rate will just kick up out of nowhere for like no reason. And that can be pretty scary on its own. And then it's like you're scared because your heart rate just did that and that kicks it up faster, But yeah, being able to like control the processes of the mind are where it's at, but it's not always easy. It's very much easier said than done. Let's think. Do I have any more books that I would recommend? I have a billion of them. What do you want? You want academic books? I have a book called Uppers, Downers, All Arounders, printed out of Medford, Oregon. It's one of my favorite books. It's about everything to do with neural mechanisms and drugs. If you want a simpler read, Buzzed is a good one. Yeah, Buzzed is a good one. Yeah. That's enough books for now, I think. Yeah, Hallucinations is awesome. You'd kapow them anyways. Whoever's behind the door, the shadow people. Yes, Buzzed. That's correct. Yeah. It's called Buzzed: The Strict Facts About the Most Used and Abused Drugs from Alcohol to Ecstasy. That's the full title. It's a good one. The Milkman? What, like from the horror movie or what? Holy crap, we've been going for 3 hours. It's pretty solid live, I think. I don't know. It feels pretty solid to me. What do y'all think? Should we wait it out? Oh, I guess actually it's been longer than that. It's been 3 hours on YouTube, which means it's probably been about 3 and 15 on TikTok. Oh, the more advanced book is Uppers, Downers, All Arounders. Yeah. Yeah, knock that milkman out. Here's this book. It's a very good one. I like this book a lot. It's one of my favorite books I've ever owned. It's super interesting. I have a couple others. I have The Mind's Machine. The Mind's Machine is one of the textbooks that I teach out of. I teach out of this one too, uppers, downers, all arounders. I teach out of The Mind's Machine, and I also teach out of Principles of Neurobiology. And then also there's a clinical neuroanatomy book that I have. I haven't really used it to teach or anything, but it's kind of cool because it was written by one of my old bosses at Yale. Looks like your MRIs. Yeah, you're welcome, Misha. I do better at work with just music. Find something that has a good tempo and make a list of similar samples. Yeah, totally. That's an excellent way to do it, for sure. Are you able to be mobile while you work? Are you able to like walk around and stuff? Or are you pretty like, do you sit at a desk? What do you do? You don't have to share any of that information with me if you don't want to. I just like knowing about people. Other books to your left. To my left, I'm reversed. So this is my right. But what books are you interested in? I have a lot of books. Let's see. Oh, Mouse is a good book. If you've ever never read that one, it's a comic book actually, but it was done by Art Sapolsky, who is a very drab sort of guy, but for good reason. His dad lived through the Holocaust. Mouse is about. It's like a cartoon depiction of Holocaust survivors as mice and the Nazis as cats. It's a really, really profound book, though. But basically, the comic is about Art Spiegelman. He found a way to visualize the stories that his dad would tell him as a kid. Yeah, Mouse is good. Uppers, Downers, All Arounders is not by Oliver Sacks. Uppers, Downers, All Arounders is by Daryl S. Aniba and William E. Cohen, who are both really big names in psychology. Great book. I already forgot which one I was talking about. Mouse. Yeah, Mouse is an excellent book. What else? There's the Alex Studies, which is a pretty cool book. I should talk about that one at some point. It's about studies done in African gray parrots, and how they're able to communicate with us, which is really interesting. Very cool neuroanatomy. See myself kind of lagging over here. Sorry if that's the case. Boo, ChatGPT. Harm, what are your favorite books? Also, why are you telling me some? Why are you're going to take all my favorite books? You're not going to give me any favorite books. I want to know books. Give me your favorite book. Everybody, tell me one book right now. If you're here, you have to tell me one book, or get out. I'm just kidding. You don't have to leave. Oh no. Yo, can you hear me now? Well, I literally talked so long my mic died. Okay. AI is overrated for sure. Yeah, we don't need AI. We are creative all on our own. We can do it. We can do it on our own. Okay, good. I'm glad that you can hear me. Okay. What I was saying was everybody needs to tell me a book, one of their favorite books right now. If you're here, you got to tell me your favorite book, because it's not fair that I would give you all my favorite books. Mind's Machines, actually, that's incorrect. Here's The Mind's Machine. The Mind's Machine is one of my favorite books that I teach out of. Neil V. Watson and S. Mark Breedlove. Breedlove's a dope name. To Kill a Mockingbird. Why is that your favorite? My wife really liked that book as well. I haven't finished it. I tried, and the language was a little bit too old for me. But I will try it again because you said it. Because my wife likes that book, or at least used to like that book. I will read it again. I'll try again. To Kill a Mockingbird. Homer's Odyssey. Yes, that's a good one for sure. I love the Odyssey and the Iliad. Yeah, thanks, Resist Oppression. That's okay, Misho. Yeah, sorry for not giving you the correct title and authors right off the bat. I should have done that. We are definitely not too educated for you. Nobody's too educated for you. Don't think that way. A great book for you to fall asleep. Interesting. I'll try reading it when I'm falling asleep. Dopamine Nation. Oh, yes, I have that on my list. Yeah, and like how short form content and gambling and things like that is just like ruining us. Cindy, The Shack. Do you know who that's by? I freaking love books so much. I love books. Thanks for sharing your books with me. Remind them intellect is a very broad term, is what Resist Oppression says. You are right. Absolutely. Intellect is a broad term. And people have all sorts of different types of intellect, and you don't need a degree to be intellectual, right? Or read a lot of books either. Like, you can be intellectual from learning from life. That's right, Scrawny. We all learn from each other. Thanks, Misho. I appreciate that. Yeah, thanks for being here, Miss Sunset. Usually I Google everything. Now I got lazy and I got it wrong. Yeah, that'll happen. You can't cut corners. William P. Young. Okay. Check. William P. Young. I'll read it. I'll let you know what I think. Yeah. Thanks for the recommendation. Also, it's good to see you. The Plague by Albert Camus. Oh, okay, sure. I think I've heard of that. Man, I can't wait. I love having stuff to talk to people about. And like books are a great way to talk to people. Street smart, book smart, correct. Hi Chuck, how you doing? Oh, Camus. Okay. Is that really how you pronounce that name? Interesting. I had no idea. Now I know. For anybody who doesn't know, Albert Camus is pronounced Camus. I had no idea. Soft. Is that an acronym? Did I say soft? I'm sorry if I did. I definitely wasn't saying an acronym. Oops. I guess I'm going to write on my brain. Sorry, brain. Brain's a good boy. Say hi to Brain, everybody. I'm really losing my mind over here. Get it? Oh, I got to pick that up. Okay, I must be getting tired. French is difficult. That's true. I am book smart, but not a street smart at all. That's fine. We all need to have our own thing, like that's what balances us out and that's what keeps us diverse. And diversity is the key to life. So says every evolutionary biologist. Yeah, Harm's slacking. Really, this is Harm's fault, Misho. Blame Harm. Everybody say boo to Harm. Just kidding. Don't boo my wife. That was loud from downstairs. I'm sorry, Harm. Love you. My brain span doesn't last long, but Thomas More, The Political Works, is a must. Okay, cool. Thank you. Thanks, Miss Sunset. Thomas More. More? The Political Works. Okay. I cannot wait for these. Oh, soft, is that the acronym? It's a colloquialism. Okay. What's your colloquialism? I want to know what soft is. What is this? What is this colloquialism business? What are you telling me? What are you telling me? I'm so tired. I'm sorry. I'm really tired. I'm getting weird. I get weird when I'm tired. As a neurospecialist, do you encounter an increasing number of dysautonomia cases? So I'm a neuroscientist, which means that I do a lot of research, um, but I'm not like a specialist in anything. I don't like see patients or anything. I do tutor people, and I teach, or I used to teach at the University of Oregon. Um, but I do know a lot of people with dysautonomia. That being said, Scrawny, I know people with dysautonomia. What would you like to know about it? Thanks for the hug, Cindy and Chuck. Also, it's really good to see you. It's been a long time since I've seen you guys. It's been such a. I don't know if you know this. I've got 10 years. Just letting you know. I don't know if you knew that. Thanks for the gift. Dope. I love that little heart. Thank you so much. My sons can speak French. I'm just here like, where's the German? Oh, I used to be able to speak German. I can't speak French at all. No parlez-vous. Internet suddenly cuts off. Oh no. Am I still painting? I don't really paint that much. I haven't painted in probably about a year, but I do draw quite a bit. I'm drawing something for Liz actually for a gift. Yeah, for Liz to give to her daughter, I believe. Yeah. And Miss Sunset, thanks again so much for the gift. I appreciate you. Oh, I don't. Please, you don't have to ever send me any gifts. I just want everybody to know here. The best thing you can do for me is watch my videos. I'm almost monetized on TikTok. I hope to be monetized on YouTube as well. Oh, soft, smart, open, fair, and thoughtful. Messing up one of them. I don't know. Those sound pretty good. I like that acronym. Smart, open, fair, and thoughtful. I like that. Yes. Um, No, please, you don't have to send me gifts. I always appreciate them. Obviously, I will always appreciate any gift. But if we can get me monetized, I will start putting that money towards my videos and making them better quality. That's what I really want. That's what I want to do. I work in research too. Worked in many specialties. Now with DoD. Awesome, you work in research too. Yeah, thanks, Scrawny. What are you doing at the DoD? Can you talk about it? It's cool if you can't, or if you don't want to. You also don't have to share. Yeah, I'm not doing research right now. I'm kind of in between stuff at the moment, but yeah, I'd be interested in hearing more about your research. 39 and 37. Geez, that's not even possible. You're lying. Get out of here, Cindy, you liar. I'm just kidding. I know you're telling the truth. I I remember when I used to think that was a lie. I'm really proud of you guys. Yeah, I draw a lot. Thank you for showing your appreciation. I really appreciate you back. I appreciate all of you guys. Gives help the popularity of the live, brings more people in so you get monetized faster. Nice. Yeah, as long as they're cheap. Don't spend like a lot of money. Don't do that. Thanks. Yeah, Fluffy. Thanks so much for being part of this live. Yeah, we enjoyed having you. Thanks for interacting and talking with people. That's true, Cindy. Yeah, that's what it's all about. We get old and we live the life we want, the life we're supposed to live. Thanks for the heart. Thank you. I appreciate it. Human Research Protections Director, right? Protocols, review, IRB, blah, blah. What? Not blah, blah. That's really important. That's good stuff. Are you hiring? Yeah, that's awesome. I'm currently looking for work. I was actually applying at Thermo Fisher recently. Yeah, I'm glad you came across me. Thanks so much for following me, Scrawny. Yeah, I'm looking for work currently. Right now, I'm just tutoring on the side while me and my wife help renovate our friend's house. But before this, we were both working at Yale up in Connecticut. We moved here earlier this year, here to New York, is here to help our friends renovate this house. Yeah, so I don't know. I'm looking around. What's your view on Ehlers-Danlos syndrome? Do you think it's an autoimmune? Yeah, I think it could be for sure. Uh, oh, for sure, not so good right now. You're from New York? That's cool. Yeah. Um, yeah. So Ehlers-Danlos is a connective tissue disorder. Um, and it causes all sorts of problems. It causes all sorts of problems. You hyperextend everything. Everything pops and breaks when it shouldn't. Um, one person I know who has EDS, she whenever she opens a cabinet, she dislocates her fingers, and then they'll go right back to normal. But obviously, it's excruciating pain during the time that it happens. Uh, I definitely think it could be autoimmune. I'm not for certain. I want to actually, you know what? I'll look more into that, and I will do a video on Ehlers-Danlos. I'll see what the potential causes are for it. Yeah. You pull a blanket and your shoulder dislocates? No. Yeah, yeah. So HEDS is hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. Yeah. Yeah, that does happen. Yeah. Yeah, even just like trying to pull your blanket up at night, right? You'll dislocate your wrist or your shoulder. Yeah, there aren't very many people who have that condition. And also it's like I don't know. But it's interesting because a lot of those people with that condition, they look very similar. You can kind of tell there's something going on. Yikes is correct, resist oppression. Yeah. Okay. Um let's see. Do we have any closing thoughts? Should we I don't know. I feel like if I need like a thing an outro. I don't need an outro. I need like something to do with you guys. Something to finalize it. Thank you for the gift. Thank you so much. Um we need something. We need some way to like finalize it. We say this is how we say goodbye. How do we say goodbye? Oh shoot, Misho, I forgot to talk about the jellyfish. Yes, we can talk about jellyfish and neural nets. I'm going to do a video on jellyfish neural nets just for you, Misho. I'm sorry I forgot to talk about it this live. Thank you, Cindy, for the gift. I appreciate you. I believe more disorders than we realize are immune related, tied to autonomic and parasympathetic. Got to go. Looking forward to more feed. Hey, Scrawny, thanks so much for being here. Thanks for following me. You take care. Thanks, I appreciate it. Already looked into and my mind is blown. Can't comprehend how is jellyfish even staying alive. Yeah, they're weird. Pain meds and virtual hugs. Yeah. Thanks, Scrawny. You take care. Message retracted. I don't even get to know what you said. Coward. It's probably a typo or something. Thanks to everyone here. Take care. Yeah. Yeah, I guess we can just end it. It just feels weird. It feels so unceremonious to just end it. Like, bye. No. I really appreciate you guys, like always. Hey, we're only like 7,000 views away from me becoming monetized on TikTok. Soon as I do that, I'm going to start looking into making better videos. And over on YouTube, congratulations, everybody. We've made it to over 2,000 followers. That's fantastic. Thanks everyone who's here for helping our channel grow and just being part of this community. Thanks for all the questions. Thanks for like looking out for each other. That's the biggest thing, right? That's fine if you wrote it wrong. I appreciate you being here, Resist Oppression, and Hannah, if you're still here, and everybody else. Thanks, Harm, for always supporting me and just being here and having my back. Yeah, thank you. I'm glad you found us, Miss Sunset. Thanks, Misha. Stay safe, everybody. Thanks so much for being an awesome community and looking out for each other. You have no idea what this means to me and how much I appreciate all of you. Yeah, with that, thank you. Thank you. You personally, you. I'm looking at you. I'll see you in the next one. What? Maybe Saturday? Keep all arms and legs inside of the vehicle. Thanks for the heart, Cindy. All right. Yeah, maybe Saturday, maybe Sunday. We'll see. Nighty night, everybody.